In the words of Sarkodie's rap, it's a beautiful brand new day. Hey, welcome to the AM show with me, Sweetie Awoshi, and Benjamin Akako. I'm told that I'm draped in Ebenezer Senior High School colors. I don't know, but I hope these bright colors resonate with you and brighten your day and your mood. Welcome aboard the AM show. What are we doing this morning? This morning we'll start by serving you the AM News, the first news bulletin on the Joy News channel, your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. And then we get into our news review segment. Kojo Poku is energy analyst and Dr. Wisdom Dogbe is financial analyst. Both gentlemen will be joining us to review the news stories captured in the papers. Our sports anchor, Haruna Mubarak, will bring you AM Sports, the latest chronicles from the world of sports. And then we'll get into our big stories. We'll start from the former President John Dramani Mahama, who's unveiled his elaborate plan for education in his youth manifesto yesterday. And among the raft of measures, he's promising a dedicated fund for free senior high school, extending free education to private senior high schools. He says there's going to be a no academic fees policy for level 100 students, free tertiary education for disabled persons, and he intends to abolish the double-track system. We'll probe these measures, whether they're feasible or mere rhetoric by political actors riding on electorates who seem to be carried away by freebies. Also, the Peace Council is worried about a charged political climate sustained by intemperate comments by political actors in the lead-up to the 2024 elections. We've seen scores of politicians wax lyrical, saying things that really a leader should not be saying in this election year. How do we navigate this threat that wields all the potential to derail the peace that we need? We will hear from the Catholic Bishop Conference. These and many other conversations coming your way this morning from now to 10 a.m. You want to join us with your comments and thoughts, especially on social media at Joy News on TV. And when we open the phone lines, you can also call in and share your thoughts with us. Welcome aboard. Let's start with the AM News. You want to stay with us. This is the AM News. Let's start from my election headquarters, and it's always brought to you by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity, and the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, CIMA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, AICPA, together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, Chopbox Technologies, a convenient service, and Youth Bridge Foundation, bridging the gap for positive youth development. This morning, on a day when Ghana joins the rest of the world to celebrate International Youth Day, the opposition National Democratic Congress has unveiled its grand plan for young people in the country. The newly launched Youth Manifesto promises to extend a free senior high school policy to private institutions and eliminate academic fees for level 100 university students and establish a dedicated ministry for youth development, along with what the party describes as jobs, jobs, and more jobs through the 24-hour economy policy. Listen to the NDC flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, at UPSA Auditorium talking about the creation of the Ministry of Youth Development.
In my commitment to establish a dedicated ministry for youth development, this ministry will centralize the coordination of youth initiatives in Ghana. It will facilitate job creation, it will promote entrepreneurship, it will provide scholarships and enhance youth participation in decision-making, while ensuring the effective implementation of the National Youth Authority Act. Despite various initiatives, a significant gap still exists between the skills offered by educational institutions and the demands of our job market. Only about 10% of our young people receive formal skills training, and thereby hampering their employability and their economic prospects. This current situation is detrimental to innovation and economic growth, and particularly affecting artisans and craftsmen who need access to modern tools and training. And therefore, to address these shortcomings, the next NDC government will partner with religious bodies and other non-governmental organizations to invest in diverse skills development programs to enhance the economic opportunities that are available to our young people. And so, the National Apprenticeship Program, which is NAP, and the expanded TVET centers will provide skills upscaling for youth who do not progress to the tertiary level. Political bias and nepotism have tarnished the recruitment processes within Ghana's security services and our public sector. This undermines trust in public institutions and creates disillusionment amongst our youth.
The NDC flag bearer also provided new details about his plan for a 24-hour economy policy. He says the NDC will incentivize the private sector to also work 24 hours and provide cheaper and more reliable power for companies and industries. John Mahama says it will provide jobs, and more jobs.
This is a policy that is not peculiar only to Ghana. A 24-hour economy will enable one job to be shared across 3 shifts and employ 3 persons, providing job opportunities for 3 workers instead of 1. And that is what my intelligent, eloquent younger sister, or should I say my daughter, explained as 1, 3, 3. This policy aims to drive economic growth, improve service delivery, and create jobs in both the public and private sectors, and will prioritize the needs of our young people. And for the policy to thrive, the government will have to invest in security and public safety measures, including recruiting additional personnel, enhancing street lighting to promote nighttime economic activity. Essential components of the public sector's 24-hour service, that is for the public sector, would include a 24-hour ports and harbour, 24-hour customs service, 24-hour banking service, 24-hour vehicle licensing service, and 24-hour passport services, amongst others. I also intend to incentivize the private sector to operate 24 hours, and targeted sectors in the private sector would include 24-hour agro-processing, 24-hour manufacturing, 24-hour construction, 24-hour sanitation and waste management,
We are all involved indeed, but still from our election headquarters, running mates for the new patriotic party, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, says, despite the global crisis, Ghana remains economically stable. According to him, the country remained food sufficient even when some developed countries struggled. Dr. Opoku-Prempeh believes the stability experienced is enough proof that the NPP holds the key to Ghana's quest for development. Nana Yaljima was at the NPP's Ashanti Region campaign launch and has filed this report.
The NPP running mate was the main speaker at the official launch of the Ashanti Regional Campaign Working Committees and Women's Conference. Dr. Opoku-Prempeh, drawing comparison between Ghana and other developed economies, insists even in times of fuel shortage in advanced countries, Ghana never experienced shortages. To him, the NPP administrations in the past and present have ensured economic stability.
Whenever the NPP is in power, there is peace and food security. When there was hardship all over the world, Ghana didn't experience any. When some developed countries were queuing for fuel, Ghana had fuel. We never experienced power cuts. It means the NPP belongs to God.
An opinion shared by the running mate that Akufo-Addo's government has performed greater than the country's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, received public backlash. Though an apology has been rendered, Dr. Prempeh believes the present administration has been the best.
Anado, why baby? Eh, no crap, being high me tea, that's a cabin. Sir, and my bagana hanging, Obiani Hawaii, Jumasan, Anado, Akufo-Addo.
President Akufo has done his part. I'm not exaggerating. I am saying this again. Nana Akufo-Addo has been our best president. Every parent wants the awards to do better than they did.
Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Dr. Buzi Abeyebi, Dr. Hila Lema Abeyebi, Dr. Rollins Abeyebi, Dr. John Ajeku Kufu Abeyebi, Dr. Bakuno, Dr. Atamils Ebeye Kaka, Dr. Okay.
Meanwhile, the running mate is encouraging people of Ashanti to dispute the tribal tag of NPP by voting massively for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He emphasized the party has done enough to deserve votes from the region.
Ashanti region, Eta President Akufo-Addo. Ashanti region, Eta Nanado Dankwa Akufo-Addo Krache President Akufo.
Ashanti region supported President Akufo and Nana Akufo-Addo. The region will even do better for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. It is a country being built, not a tribe. The region accepts all tribes and religions.
For Joy News, Nana Alchima, Kumasi.
Now, still on the New Patriotic Party, they've outlined strategies to attain 85% of votes in the Ashanti region in the 2024 presidential election. According to the party leadership, strengthening the organization structures for door-to-door campaigning is the only means of delivering the target. Ashanti Regional Chairman Bernard Ntwibosiaku, speaking at the launch of the region's campaign, says the NPP's target to win all parliamentary seats in the jurisdiction remain active. Nana Aljima again has more.
Though the Ashanti region remains the New Patriotic Party's stronghold, its highest percentage attained in recent years is 76.2%. The NPP had targeted between 70 and 75% in the coming elections, but running mate Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh at his outdooring reviewed the figure to 85%. He repeated the statement at the launch of the party's campaign in the Ashanti region.
It is easier for NPP to get 885 with Bawumia as presidential candidate than any time in the history of the party. The Mwamunim Yanum party no Omo highest votes in elections.
The highest votes of the contender is from the Ashanti region, so the region is also the World Bank of our opponents. But Bawumia is a game changer.
MPP a Ghana party no 85 no chama would be a bebaso.
Many find this unattainable, but the challenge is accepted by Chairman Bernard Ntwibosiaku.
Our target we are going to give to 47 constituencies. We are going to make sure it comes to pass. For a few weeks ago, our running mate, he said or he pronounced our target to us. He says that we are going to have 85%. That is the target for Ashanti region. If you don't have a target, you cannot win. So our target, we are winning the election 2024 from polling station to electoral area to the constituency to everywhere. We are winning all the election in 16 regions.
According to the chairman of the NPP Manifesto Committee, Osei Mensah Bonsu, the attainment of the objective is largely dependent on the organization units of the party. To him, with a good structure, party members can develop an effective door-to-door campaign to touch base with the NPP's message. Mr. Mensah Bonsu observed polling station structure has not been effective after the previous election.
Ashanti, say, I was here 85%. It's good to aspire higher. Yes, sir. We do need to idea a so. Now, so I was here for here. The past 4 elections are yet to honor.
If we look at our performance in the past 4 elections, our best has been 76% in the region. If we want to make our target, we must work hard.
Ignite the organization unit of the party. I don't think here.
For Joy News, Nanaya Ochima, Kumase.
Away from our election headquarters to other stories, fisher folk at Jamestown in Accra are calling on government to construct another concrete dock bumper at the fishing harbour to protect their canoes from the storm. The fisher folk are deeply concerned about the increasing threat posed by storms, which have the potential to severely damage their canoes and affect their businesses. The following report has more.
In an interview with Joy News following the inspection of the newly constructed Jamestown Fishing Harbour by the Transport Minister, the spokesperson of the Jamestown Fisherfolk, Robert Nette, argued that the current dock bumper is insufficient to protect the growing number of canoes from the strong waves and winds.
Of the storm, turn the canoe. Once you have anchored your canoe, maybe you are asleep in the afternoon, in the night, you have gone to fishing, whereby you are tired, you have anchored your canoe in the harbour. Once you are in the harbour, means that your canoe is in safety. But due to the fastness of the storm, turn our canoes to hit the wharf, and then some of part of the harbour and some of the canoes do got spoiled. So we are pleading to the authorities and then the engineers for them to go to Osekai, where there is a rock there. They should lay another breakwater over there so that whenever there is a storm, our canoes will be safety in the harbour. We plead to them once again.
Meanwhile, Transport Minister Kweku Ofori-Esiama expressed satisfaction with the work done at the Jamestown Fishing Harbour. He is confident the facility will create jobs for fisher folk in the area.
We've also seen 1 or 2 things that we think that we can also suggest, which we have suggested to them. And we think that by the time we come for the commission, our comment will be factored into finally before we commission. But I think that all in all, they've done a good job. We have a day nursery, we have a police station, fire station, this administration block. We saw the stores, ice making machine, fish marketing center, and ship repair center, which is very, very important.
Edward Boateng, Ghana's ambassador to China at the commencement of the project, called for a public-private partnership to help maintain the facility.
How do we bring private sector people in so that, you know, the fish that is brought in the morning, you could come here in the evening and have a nice fish meal with your family, that you can sit on the boat, go for a 2 or 3 hour boat ride and come back. It's relaxing. And I think these are the things that we are also looking at. So I would say that we are capable of raising the money to do these things ourselves. This is a big project.
The project includes dredging of about 100,000 cubic meters of harbour basin, construction of more than 1,000 meters hydraulic structures, the construction of office buildings, cold storage and processing areas.
The Bank of Ghana has revealed that it has capped its allocations for the Gold for Oil program in full compliance with the recommendations of the International Monetary Fund. The Bank of Ghana was cited by the Auditor General in its 2023 report for undertaking the policy without any formal agreement with the Precious Mineral Marketing Company. Appearing before the Public Accounts Committee, First Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afare, told the committee Bank of Ghana has, among other measures, decided to cap financing for the policy. James Aveji has more in the following report.
The Bank of Ghana in 2022 entered into an arrangement with the Precious Minerals Marketing Company to use part of its resources from the domestic gold purchase program to provide foreign currency for the importation of petroleum products. The move, according to the BOG, was to ensure availability of fuel, reduce fuel prices at the pumps, and most importantly, ease pressure on the cedi. 2 years on, the Auditor General flagged the arrangement in its 2023 report, citing no available agreement. First Deputy Governor of BOG, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afare, explains to the Public Accounts Committee why.
We use the gold purchasing program to be able to purchase more gold for oil, and had an MOU with PMMC to be able to do that. Now, as that happened in the time of the crisis, then we started the process of having formal agreements, which we started discussing with PMMC and all the others involved. That is what the auditors picked up, to say that the MOU was not sufficient and it has to be moved to a formal gold purchase program, because this is a deviation from the gold purchase program for reserves. But Mr. Chairman, I want to also emphasize that the central bank has been mandated to ensure price stability and financial stability. And the central bank has to take every decision that it has to take possible to ensure that we don't have disorderly collapse in the financial sector. And that's precisely what the central bank did.
But chairman of the committee, James Aveji, disagreed.
So my question was that at the time you were doing the gold for oil, didn't you know that you should have a full agreement with the PPMC or IPMC? What is the name?
PMMC. Yeah.
PMMC.
What I'm saying, that I think the act you read is talking about mitigating risk.
Yeah, of course. Of course, definitely there will be a risk associated with the gold for oil program.
And we were doing the same thing within the same risk framework that manages our reserves and manages the entire gold purchase program.
The BOG assured that steps to sign an official agreement with PMMC will be concluded by end of month. The bank also revealed that it has cut financing to the gold for oil deal.
This is part of our risk management program to ensure that the bank is not overexposed to this special project. And this was also agreed as part of the IMF program. So it's being monitored consistently to ensure that not a single cedi is added to the amount that was capped. And so that's between us and the IMF. We both agree that BOG should not continue to be overexposed to in terms of the gold for oil project. Yeah.
Also appearing before the committee was the National Lottery Authority. Director General Samia Uku told PAC that the authority is losing the fight against illegal operators in the market because of political interference.
We've allowed a system where everybody knows somebody in the country. You touch this one, they'll go and call this big man who belongs to this side of the political divide, that side of the political divide. And that has, for me, that has been the challenge of the NLA stamping its authority in the fight against the illegal. But now we are resolute. We are firm in our conviction. We are losing almost over $1 billion cedis annually to these illegal operators.
When ECG appeared, MP for Ketu South, Jifa Ablagomashi, raised concerns about widespread allegations of overbilling by customers. This was MD Samuel Dubik Mahame's response.
What we are realizing now is what most people don't know is that meters do expire. Meters don't have a long lifespan. They do expire. And it's something that is not the fault of the customer. So it's something that we now have to go out there and educate everybody very well. Reflect. And let's also not forget that the PURC has increased tariffs over the period to a total of almost 75%. So it's a conversation that has to be looked at in this holistic form.
Public universities are billed to take their turn at the committee on Tuesday. James Aveji, Parliament House, Accra.
For our first story in the business updates, the Bank of Ghana has attributed its rising losses in 2022 to the impact of the domestic debt exchange program, which led to over a 50% haircut on government instruments held by the central bank. Now, speaking before the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, the first Deputy Governor, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afare, disclosed that the central bank incurred a cumulative loss of approximately 54.5 billion Ghana cedis, significantly affecting its financial outlook.
From 2022, the biggest portion of the loss is not really coming from our operations. It's coming from as a result of the 50% haircut that the central bank took on behalf of stock of government debt. And here I'm putting emphasis on stock, meaning with this accumulation of government instruments that the central bank has been holding for years back. And as part of the DDEP, the Bank of Ghana had to take a 50% haircut. At the time of the DDEP in 2022, total government instrument stock that was being held by the central bank was 64.5 billion Ghana cedis. Out of this, we took a haircut of 50%, and that meant that we took a hit of 32.2 billion Ghana cedis. And then when the also was fair valued, which is part of the IFRS 9, the fair valuation meant that there must be an impairment or a fair valuation loss of 12.1 billion Ghana cedis, which is not coming from our operations, but coming from the debt exchange program that was introduced.
The total amount of mobile money accounts with telcos that has been kept with the commercial banks has reached 115 billion Ghana cedis ending June this year, 2024. And that's according to the latest financial technology report released by the Bank of Ghana. George Wiafe has the details.
This is actually different from the total value of mobile money transactions, which hit 1.2 trillion cedis ending June this year. However, it is that money on the wallet on your phone which the mobile money operators have kept with the commercial banks based on the Bank of Ghana requirement. Again, when you do a month-on-month comparison, the money saved with the commercial banks have gone up significantly, a development that could be helping bring in more money outside the banking system. If you do a breakdown of the mobile money numbers, all the transaction types on this platform have seen some strong growth over the past 6 months. For instance, out of the 1.2 trillion cedis funds that were moved on the platform for the first 6 months of this year, 44% of that had to do with transfers from one wallet to the other, or call it the person-to-person transfers. The Bank of Ghana puts the registered number of mobile money accounts ending June this year at 69.3 million.
So, folks, that's it for the business update, ending the AM News Bulletin. And stay with us because News Review comes up next. And Kojo Poku, Energy Analyst, and Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, Financial Analyst, join us to review the various stories captured in the newspapers. We'll be right back. Don't change your dial.
Welcome back on the AM show. It's time now for me to take over from Sweetie Abochi. From here, we're getting into the news review, and I'll be telling you about my guests shortly. But first off, this segment, always brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Now, here's what they're offering you. If you're a man, prostate screening for free. When was the last time you checked your prostate? And if you're not checking it out, do you know it could really mess you up in a time to come? By which time it may already be getting fatal. If you're a woman, do you know your fertility status? Now, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic is offering all these services to you, the screening, for free, if you're a man or woman. Just reach out to them at any of their branches. Let's start with here in Accra. Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronomo Abwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Tichiman Hanswa, and Esiaman Zama. If you'd like to call them, these are the numbers you can reach them on. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Right now, though, let me introduce my guest for you. Joining me, energy analyst Kwadwo Poku, he joins the conversation, and financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Dugri. Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I am okay. I'm okay. I hope you are too.
I'm very well. I mean, it's a Tuesday morning, beginning of the week. What else can we hope for? We are live.
The week started yesterday. But anyway, I'll start with you, Kofi. What are your quick thoughts for us? I want us to cover a lot of ground today, so make them straight to the point, brief, a minute and a half.
Yeah, Ben, thank you so much for having me again. I was reading a news article on Manasseh's new book, and the revelation that the former finance minister and his company, Bank, they may have made a whopping $9 million in Ghana's domestic borrowing and also in Eurobonds. I think this is a revelation that should trouble all well-meaning Ghanaians, that when the nation was going through all of these economic challenges, the very same people that were in charge to pursue policies that would prevent such economic crisis, or at least manage the crisis better, these officials not only were they not able to prevent this hardship on Ghanaians, but when everyone else was struggling, they were busy benefiting from the woes of the nation's excessive borrowing, as alleged. Is this not a classic case of create, loot, and share? Think about it for a second. How on God's green earth would we say that there is nothing wrong with these optics? If it is true, right, that a finance minister fails to properly manage the finances of the nation, then leads efforts to borrow and borrow. And each time he's making money for himself through his company every time he goes to borrow. You know, I worry about these things and the impact on our nation, Ben, seriously. And I hope that either Dr. Bawumia or President Mahama, whoever wins the elections, I hope that they would, at the very least, properly investigate the activities of these some of these government appointees, especially the finance minister, including the contracts that he signed in the last hours of his tenure.
And I know you're referring to that ambulance contract. It's also interesting on the other side because you would have heard, for example, long before the talk about the fact that, you know, Databank had been a transactional advisor in the past, but according to Manasseh, this was few and far between, once or twice, yet there seemed to have been a ramping up, especially after Ken Ofori-Atta, the former finance minister, became finance minister. And then there is his insurance company and everything in between. Your thoughts, Kwadwo Poku?
Well, I want to say good morning to our cherished viewers. I want to greet everybody that is watching us this morning. I want to take this opportunity to apologize to the good people of the Eastern region who were anticipating the bus of possibility to basically get to them today, tomorrow, and Thursday. As you all heard, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia have put on hold his campaign of the Eastern region to concentrate on the manifesto launch that's coming up on Sunday. It's not intentional to basically let people do all the arrangements and last minute cancel these talks, but it has become that he wants to pay more attention, dot the I's and cross the T's on the manifesto and familiarize himself with the many proposals that we are going to unveil on Sunday, and that's the reason why we have to put a campaign on hold. So I want to use this medium to apologize to the people, the constituencies, and the elders and the chiefs that have been affected. We will make it up to them when the campaign tour starts on the 20th.
Mm. I like how apologetic members on your side have become. In recent times, you've been pretty free with apologies, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
We have always been free for apologies, Ben. It's not in recent times.
Oh, really?
Every time that we need to apologize. Yes, I don't see where you are going with this.
Can you remind me of the last time anyone from the MPP apologized for anything before the finance minister? Can you remind me?
There is a need. When there is a need, look, I did not get into that thing with you and Dr. Dube because for me, it's just unnecessary rhetoric. I'm not a spokesperson for the finance minister, so he can answer for himself. But the most important thing is that we have been apologetic when there's the need to be apologetic. I don't see where in recent times comes in.
Okay. Well, good to hear. We will not be the judges of that. The good people of Ghana will decide on that. But let's get into the newspapers now. The Daily Graphic newspaper is where I'm going to start from. Mahama launches NDC Youth Manifesto, promises to create more jobs. Then there's also Kolebu secures 30 new dialysis machines. NLA loses 1 billion Ghana cedis to illegal lotto operations, devises plan to reverse the trend. We heard Samia Woku touch on that in the news today. Stop threatening violence. Peace Council urges political parties. Then on the back page, Nocton MP presents $1.2 million worth of equipment to MEPA Health Center, and GNFS, that's the Ghana National Fire Service, saves 94 million Ghana cedis worth of property from fire ruins. I want to start from the back page. So the Member of Parliament for Nocton, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, has presented $1.2 million hospital equipment to the MEPA Hospital Health Center to cater for the over 20,000 population in the area. The health center was built by the City FM Foundation and the Chamber of Mines about 3 months ago to save lives after the Akosombo and Kpong dams spillages. Well, the presentation is in fulfillment of the MP's pledge to provide the necessary equipment to make the facility functional. With the support of SOS International in the US, the MP redeemed his promise with a presentation to mark his 44th birthday. The equipment included a number of dialysis machines, X-ray machines, adjustable beds, and stethoscopes. And the health center is expected to be upgraded to a full hospital in the coming months, while some of the equipment is to be sent to other health facilities to serve the people. Now, let's get into the fire service bit. The Ghana National Fire Service has saved over 94 million Ghana cedis worth of property from being ravaged by fire between January and July this year. They are made of residential buildings, industrial properties, and other public facilities. This highlights the Ghana National Fire Service's improved fire management strategies and the growing efficiency in preventing extensive damage, despite its numerous operational challenges. Now, the cost of damage also increased significantly from 120 million Ghana cedis last year to 89 million Ghana cedis this year, indicating a 26.5% reduction. So it was actually the cost of damage decreased as well, and that was the reduction there. Any quick reflections on these stories before I get to the others? I'll start with you, Kojo. Hello, Kojo Poku.
Well, thank you. I would also want to congratulate the fires. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello. Okay. I want to basically congratulate the fire service for the good work that they are doing. As we all know, the fire service has seen a massive improvement in the current years with the institutions that has been put up across the country. Can you hear me, Ben?
I can hear you. It's a bit patchy, but I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, sorry. I don't know why my network is behaving this morning. But then I want to say that we have made a massive, the NPP government has made a massive improvement and investment in the fire service, building new training centers for the fire service. The other side that I want to touch on would be the youth manifesto that was presented by the Mr. Mahama. I've heard, I don't know how far it's true because I didn't listen, that he wants to give first-year tuition free to universities. I don't know if you heard that.
Go ahead, make your point. I'll be getting into that story. Go ahead and make your point, Kojo.
No, I just want to confirm it before I make my point. So maybe you did. It's not really about go ahead and make your point. Just help me.
Whatever you have heard, go ahead and make your point on it.
Okay, all right. So basically, for me, it's a bit strange that a young guy will meet a pretty girl and say that, look, let's get married. Give you money for 1 year. You know, for me, it doesn't add up. What Ghanaians should know is that a lot of people should take advantage of. Not everybody should go to university. After secondary school, we should look at the options. Not everybody's academic. So I pray that people take advantage of the free TVET that we have and not fall for this issue of, oh, go to university and I'll give you first year education for free. Then after the 1 year, then what? We need to resolve the issues and make the senior high school better, reform the policies as we intend to take a bill to Parliament, and basically make sure that we strengthen the secondary education in the country. And that's the most important thing. And every Ghanaian knows that now the free technical education and the free senior high school is the best thing that happened to Ghana since the loaf of bread.
All right. I just have some interesting thoughts. Everybody should get senior high school education, but not everybody should get tertiary education, right? And if
I never said that.
Well, that's what you're suggesting. And if
I'm not. I said that everybody.
Let me make my point. This is my show. Let me make my point. Don't come and run roughshod here. Let me make my point.
You made a statement to question what I said.
If you allow me to finish, you can make your point. That's the whole point. When you were making a point, I didn't interject. Now the point is this. I'm just saying, and if I am wrong, you can correct me. So it is good for everybody to have senior high school education, but tertiary education is not for anybody. Someone would also argue with you. I've spoken to senior educationists who say that, look, even our technical system, we ought to make it so basic right from the start so that it's not even senior high education that will make certain people go here or there. For some people, it is clear that even at the senior high level, they should have diverted into that. That's why I'm asking that question of you. And I'm also asking this question from the standpoint of, if someone has come and delivered free senior high school, and someone also comes and says, great job, free senior high school, but let's add up so that for first years, maybe we can incrementally ensure that education is free. Is it wrong?
Well, Ben, I don't know if you're part of the NDC manifesto, but I've not heard incremental. All I heard was that first year senior high school.
Incremental is my word.
Free. I don't know why you're adding to their manifesto. They never said incremental. You are saying incremental. So I don't know if you're part of the manifesto.
I don't know whether the point is the struggle with the word incremental, which I have used, which is not in there. All I'm saying is...
Ben, let's not add to their manifesto. They said first year tertiary is free. All I'm saying is that let the Ghanaians be the judge. Let the pretty lady who the guy met and said that...
Kofi, hold for me. Let Kojo land.
Let's let the young girl who the guy met and said, let's get married, I'll give you chop money for only 1 year. Let the girl be the judge. Let Ghanaians be the judge what they want. But to your point, look, our senior and junior high school, JSS and senior high school, was that exactly what you said? Now, who caused them? Over the years of the NDC, PNDC era, they the ones who messed up our education. JSS was to be exactly what you talked of. When I was in secondary school, that they were to introduce senior high school, they were supposed to have a technical vocational part of the junior high school and senior high school. So when you're going into senior high school, you do not necessarily have to go to become academic. You can now branch off to the vocational from introducing all the knitting, the carpentry, and all those things at the JSS level. What did the PNDC and the NDC do? They messed it up. So don't come and blame anybody. It's their fault that we are in the mess that we are today. That is why everybody is now ended up being academic. Not everybody in this country can be academic. That's the truth.
Okay, so it appears you agree with me, but you don't agree with me. And I struggle with your understanding of the word incremental I used. The simple meaning. Someone has done something. Someone is adding another layer. And I don't even know why this is a struggle, because as far back as Anda Nkrumah, there were policies in place at the University of Ghana where some people at the tertiary level were getting completely free education. Some of them were being sponsored to go to Germany and Russia I have uncles who benefited from that. So sometimes when I deal with politicians, I struggle to understand where you come from sometimes. And this whole bit about it is only one side that has created the problem with our education. I don't think we have enough time to go into that. But Kofi, you wanted to respond quickly. Do that, and then we'll get into other stories.
Want to have that conversation.
Wisdom Dogwe, please go ahead.
Look, I was beaming with joy when I heard that the former president has promised that level 100 students will pay fees. They won't pay fees if he's reelected. All of the campaign promises, right? This one hits differently for me. It resonates a lot with me because of my personal story. And Kojo, maybe this will help you to understand why this is very important. My dad was a soldier in the Ghana Armed Forces. When he retired, we didn't have much. Life was challenging. A lot of the times for us, things were hard. My mom had to step in selling slippers, clothing, and different things at the whole central market, to make ends meet, for us to be able to attend school. It was very tough. And after my father, right, my parents sold everything that they had to get us through school. They could only do it through SHS. My brother, who was a student in Sweden, he had to work as a newspaper distributor at the time, send us money so we can pay our school fees. We didn't even have electricity or tap water. And despite all of that, we worked hard. And when I got to Legon, I went with only my huge portmanteau with no idea where I would even spend that night, my first day at Legon. Not to talk about where I would sleep the whole semester.
Right.
School fees, right? School fees and money for handout, it was only going to take the grace of God. And indeed then, it took the grace of God when one Dr. Amy Awuku, she knows herself, and her parents, total strangers, they were the ones who stepped in to help me at the initial stages at Legon. I could have easily dropped out from level 100 because there was no money. And so I can guarantee that this promise by the former president, if he follows through with it, it will be the reason why the daughter or the son of a struggling parent somewhere will have equal opportunity to education. And quickly, this question of what the money will come from to pay for,
I was just about to get to that. I mean, any such help, I have seen people come from school. In fact, there have been instances where some students were supposed to come from different parts of the country, came in. Once there's a delay in the window, imagine someone coming from up north to the University of Ghana. I get all of that. But that next bit you're about to tackle, how are we going to fund that? Tell me, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, Ben, most of our sources of revenue have been leveraged, right? But I can tell you that proper fiscal discipline, right, and a significant victory in the fight against corruption, this will stop the shrinkage to the government purse and provide some financial flexibility to pay for the free education.
Just a quick point. You realize that at the time, if the former president comes to power, none of that will be in place. This whole bit about, okay, so we're going to save money from the loopholes we'll plug from corruption and all of that. In the initial phase, in the initial stages, how will this be run? Or is it that maybe it may take a year of preparation before we get there? I mean, I know you may have better insight, but how is it going to happen? I'm just curious.
Look, my thought is this, right? Even today, even though we're going through the IMF program, we still have contracts that are being signed. I told you this the other time. People set up companies yesterday, today they get contracts. Millions of dollars of contract. If you cut those loopholes, Ben, I have no doubt we'll have the money to start this and we'll be able to have that incremental funding for this going forward.
Okay. All right, let's move into other stories very quickly. And then as for this discussion, now that manifestos are coming out, at least the youth manifesto on the side of the NDC, very soon the MPP as well, we'll be able to look at all of what they are proposing and surgically analyze what they are proffering. Mahama launches NDC Youth Manifesto promises to create more jobs. Former President Mahama has made a commitment to the youth that he will create abundant job opportunities that will meet their diverse needs and aspirations. Launching the 2024 Youth Manifesto of the National Democratic Congress in Accra yesterday, Mr. Mahama declared, quote, "We will create the jobs that young people have been waiting for, and when the jobs are created, no one will be left behind." He hopes to capitalize on the votes of the youth, to return to the presidency. And he said with a focus on inclusivity and equal access, the next NDC government would address the pressing concerns of unemployment, underemployment, and skills mismatch that had for long plagued the youth of the country. Let me get to some other points he makes. He said the coding initiative was captured in the NDC's 2020 manifesto. So he talks about leveraging digital tools for positive change. And he says the coding initiative captured in the NDC's 2020 manifesto document, and that any replication of such anywhere must have been copied from the party. That is one. And of course, you know where that is headed, because the sitting vice president has also spoken about enabling the youth in that regard. For me, I don't think it should really be a contest. Whoever wins, if they actualize this, it is the youth who will benefit. But then he also says, and if you want to know who has plagiarized whom, go to the NDC 2020 manifesto and look at page 88, and you see the Million Coders program there, Mr. Mahama said. Finally, and there's a lot more, but I don't have the time to get into that. Former President John Dramani Mahama made a commitment to the youth that he will create abundant job opportunities that will cater for their diverse needs and aspirations. That's the first one. Let me then go to page 11. So the Ministry of Health has procured 30 additional dialysis machines for the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. The new machines, which have their own consumables that can last for a year, will be deployed to the new Urology and Nephrology Center of Excellence at the hospital and installed for use before the end of the year. The head of the Public Relations Office of the hospital, Mustafa Salifu, who disclosed this in an interview with the Daily Graphic yesterday, said the machines were purchased through the initiatives of the Minister of Health, Dr. Bernard Okoboy. They are meant to improve the hospital's service delivery and cost efficiency, as well as prevent future shortages. I cannot express how happy I am about this news, because I may not be suffering from any issues related to that, but when you have seen people and what they go through, and people traveling long distances to come to Accra, only to meet instances where, you know, it takes about 4 hours for one person for your blood to be purified, and you can't even get the service. It is heart-wrenching, heartbreaking. So this is wonderful news, no matter how small, but we can still do better. I'll end on page 13 and get your reactions, gentlemen. Stop threatening violence, Peace Council urges political parties. Now, the National Peace Council is closely monitoring the political discourse ahead of the December 7 polls and will not hesitate to call out political parties and politicians who cross the red line by threatening violence, the National Chairman of the Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edu Jemfi, has said. He said, though it was normal practice for political actors to be optimistic about winning elections, it was unacceptable for them to resort to threats of violence to achieve electoral results. And I'll quote him here as I end. There is nothing wrong when politicians make statements that they are optimistic of winning an election, because no one goes to an election and hopes to lose. If they make such comments, that is okay, as long as they do not cross the red line by threatening to use the police, the military, or other means of violence. And I know we all know on the back of what some of these reactions are coming. God save Ghana. Your thoughts? I'll start with you, Kofi.
And I'll start by saying that congratulations. I'll get back to the story that you read on Samuel Okudzeto Blackwell. Ghana respects him. We have great respect for him. We thank him for his service to the nation and how he's getting this hospital equipment to save the people of North Town. I think that's great. That shows a sign of leadership. And it's a different kind of leadership from leaders who try to buy state properties at paltry prices. Now, look, there's a reason why Ghana is known across the sub-region, in fact, across the world, to be a peaceful nation. We haven't come this far because of politicians. We came this far to be known as a peaceful nation because of our tolerance and patriotism and peaceful coexistence. So yes, I will implore people to remain vigilant, against any politician who seeks to incite them to act violently in these elections. Violence is not the answer. It's never been the answer. It's okay for us to have different political convictions and still remain neighborly. Kojo and I, we have different political convictions, and I'm sure we're going to be good friends, So we need to continue to educate ourselves and not depend only on politicians as the source of our information. I think this will help us a lot, right? It will help the folks make informed decisions on how to vote on the issues that matter to them the most and how to hold politicians accountable for their actions. And I also call on the youth, right, to continue developing, critical thinking skills, to evaluate the messages and the rhetoric that they hear from our politicians and their surrogates. Let's learn to put this through the litmus test. You need to question that and analyze their statements. That is the way you can keep up, right? As far as your emotions are concerned, keep your emotion in check and also not act violently. So when Brian A. Champion says NPP will win the elections because they have malams, they have imams, pastors, traditional juju people, whatever he was talking about, I expect the voters to take it as comedy because these spiritualists don't help you win elections. It is your record that the voters will vote on. We can argue about different
But he did make mention of records. He says check the records of the MPP in terms of elections and all of that. So at least he mentioned records in there.
But he based his argument mainly on having malams, pastors, juju people, or traditional, whatever he's talking about. That's not how you win elections.
Don't they malams and pastors vote?
Could you let him land? Let him land, please.
Look, all I would say is this. Let's be very wary of these politicians who use divisive language to promote hatred. Okay. And those who advocate violence as a means to achieve their goals.
All right.
Trust me, if they have anything good to offer, they will not put their hopes in malams or other spiritualists. They will not incite us to violence.
All right. Are you done?
Yes.
All right. Kojo?
Well, me and my brother don't have different conviction in politics. We just sit in two different countries and look at things differently. That's all. We have the same convictions, but we sit in two different countries. I sit in Ghana, you sit in the US. We look at things differently. Look, let me say this. Jobs. The MPP manifesto, the Dr. Bawumia manifesto is basically called jobs and businesses. The focus of the manifesto is to promote jobs and businesses. Now, the most key thing in our manifesto is the how. Every point we've put in there, we basically look into how. We interrogate the how. That's the most important thing. So when we say we'll create jobs, and when the manifesto comes out, you guys will see how the manifesto is being laid out. It's to basically point out whatever initiatives we have and how that initiative create jobs. So everybody reading the manifesto can correlate the initiative directly to the jobs that it creates. Now, when His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the former president, said that somebody is copying his initiative, nobody is copying his initiative. Look, as I have always said, he doesn't understand that space. He promised coders. Now, coding is different from creating digital jobs, which the vice president talks about. If you listen to the vice president's speech, he goes on to say that you can sit in Ghana, you can sit in Wale, you can sit in Obuasi and work in Canada, America, and the US. Why does he say that? When he says that he's going to create digital jobs, today, I met a lady and I asked her what she does. She said, oh, she's a virtual administrator. My secretary has two jobs. She works for me and works online for an international company. And she does all their secretarial work for them online. So today, there are a lot of our youth who work online. There's the digital space. So what the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, talks about is that he's going to train 1 million Ghanaians for the 4th industrial revolution, which is the digital age, where you don't have to be physically present in a country to work for a company in that country. That is what he's talking about. Let me land, please. Let me land.
You have to land quickly. I intentionally gave you time. Land quickly on that point.
I haven't finished my time you gave me. Let me finish. You can ask your question.
I'm not giving you any time. Your time is up, and I'm actually letting you go ahead.
But so you're only giving me 45 seconds.
I didn't say anything about 45 seconds, oh. Land and let's move on.
Hold on. This discrimination won't work because you gave him about 2 minutes to talk. So let me finish my point. Okay, so let me continue. Now, the issue of coding is not the same. So nobody is copying anybody. Anybody who understands IT knows what coding is. Coding is not the same as digital jobs. So by finishing, and you can ask the question you want to ask. The most important thing today is to basically look forward to the future and train the kids for the future, not to be looking at jobs, which is the backward-looking jobs that he's proposing to train coding. These days, who code anymore? I am done.
Do I have 15 seconds?
Kofi, hold for me. you see, sometimes that's why I keep saying that you are an energy analyst, the other person is a financial analyst. The statement you just made, nowadays, who codes? I dare you, Kojo. Go out there and learn more. That's all I'm going to say to you. But you make the point about the former president's theory being very different from this one. I suppose what he's pointing to is the fact that you would create 1 million jobs as far as coders are concerned. You would train 1 million people in coding. Is that on page 88 of their youth manifesto in 2020? Is
I don't know. I don't read the NDC manifesto.
Hold for me. Don't interject. Is that what the current vice president is also saying? I don't know this bit. Like I said, whichever way it goes, but don't try to denigrate coding saying nowadays who does. If you are not informed on that, please.
Let's not go on that point. I just made a comment. Let's not go on that point anymore. Let's talk on the thing that I mentioned.
You opened your mouth and said that.
Two different. Let's not go on that point. Okay, I take that statement back. A lot of people code these days. Let's not go back on that. That Kujupoku said these days who code anymore. Let's not go on that. The most important thing is that there are two different jobs that's being created. People working online is different from coding, and everybody knows that.
Kofi, and if you have a
go and also check my IT background. Go and ask Commander Griffith, who was the chairman of the Y2K in Ghana back in 2000. He will tell you it was Kojopoku. So don't go there with my IT background, please.
Kojo, with your IT background, if you just said, I don't mean to denigrate you, but what you just said,
taking it back. What you just said, vis-a-vis your IT background,
you are just making matters worse for yourself.
Kofi, let's not flood that statement.
Kofi, quick thoughts. I see you have a rebuttal.
Just 15 seconds, and I'm glad, Kojo, you took it back. One of the things I was going to say pretty quickly is today, right, in today's job market, I have hired people. I have been in the market hiring people even up until last month.
Right.
The point I want to make here is this. Coding is a requirement even today, not just at the analyst level, but also at the exec level. You want to be able to hire somebody who comes in, who knows how to code and able to train people. So you cannot discount that. So I'm glad you took that back. Now, the other thing I want to mention quickly.
It has to be quick, Kofi. Quick point. We have to get into other stories.
Very quickly. The point I want to make here is this. You have all of these things that you talked about, Kojo, but our youth are still at home. A lot of them are still at home. In Ghana today, you need to know somebody very influential to get a well-paying job. That's what we need to change.
It's not true. It's not true. It's not true.
Kofi, finish your point.
The difference between me and you is that I employ a lot of people. In Ghana, I employ a lot of people. You don't need to know people to get employed.
Will you allow me to regulate this conversation?
But he makes a statement that is wrong. Let's correct it. You don't need to know people influential to get a job in Ghana. It's not true.
Kofi, go ahead with your point.
I know a lot of people, young graduates, that completed school and they were not able to find jobs. My own sister, she stayed in Ghana for a long time. Eventually, I had to take her out. So I know what I'm talking to you about. There are no jobs for the youth, especially those that don't have influential people, that don't people in power.
Thank you, Kofi. So I've just been given some further insight as well as far as the funding of the level 100s at the university level or the tertiary level is concerned. There have been interactions and there has been talk about part of the funding being from the GET Fund. Of course, we know about the capping of the GET Fund and what that creates. Some estimates have been given in terms of the cost of admissions per student, and indeed the estimates to enroll using the last academic year's statistics. Kofi Asare of EduWatch actually waded into that, and he made mention of the fact that less than 4% of the uncapped GET Fund would suffice to take care of this. So I guess that also answers that bit about funding, which I raised and you, Kofi, you had raised.
I'm glad to hear that. Right. I'm glad to hear that. This is very feasible.
Well, it looks like this platform is becoming an NDC mouthpiece where you guys are just basically part of the NDC manifesto, giving answers to questions NDC themselves cannot even answer. I'm surprised. Ben is now becoming the one who comes in. You are becoming. Look, if this thing is becoming an NDC thing, let's know so we can all respond accordingly. Because I think we are analyzing the
Kofi, relax. Kofi, relax. Let him land.
Ben asked the question, then now we have the answer for the NDC. They themselves don't know how to fund this thing when they came out of it. Now all of a sudden, Ben have an answer for them. Interested.
Are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, so next time, since it is such a platform, next time possibly you shouldn't even join this conversation. That is one. Two, if you have any sense of bias, which you haven't mentioned in the past, and I have you on these discussions, the mere fact that we have you on this discussion should tell you something. And if you feel that you don't want to have these conversations with us, you can make it clear so that next time we don't bring you on. Now, the third point.
No, it's not that.
Hold for me. Let me make my point. Let me make my point. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me.
Let me also make my point.
Don't interrupt me. The last point. I merely made mention of the fact that I had been given further information. In fact, it is someone from our production team who alerted me to the fact that these conversations had been had. And I was merely pointing for the sake of education, both for Kofi Dogbe and for all those watching us, that this is the instance and this is what you want to say. So next time, let me make it clear.
No,
if you
Ben,
feel,
let me also make it clear.
No. You will not come on this show and try to denigrate.
No, Ben, you can't.
I will let you talk when I want you to talk. I will let you talk when it is time for you to talk. You will not come on this platform, on my show, on this news review, and throw yourself about. And what you've just said,
it's a news
I
review.
take exception to that.
It's supposed to be a news review.
I take exception to that. And if you ever do it again, that will be the end of any discussions with you. Know that.
It's a news review. Please, let me also make my point. It's a news review, not an NDC mouthpiece. And as you clearly said, it's a news review. You went on to bring up this point of, how are they going to fund it? Then all of a sudden, we now have an answer to how it's going to be funded. It's a news review. How are we now making it an NDC mouthpiece? Well, that's the point I'm making. As a news review, we are reviewing the newspaper.
So what
you have done.
So I cannot get information on the back of a question that I want all of us to answer.
Information on basically something that you bring up and you answer.
It is interesting because there have been similar instances where there have been things on your side, and I've come through with information on it. But I guess you wouldn't remember that, would you?
No, I don't remember that.
I am not surprised. You wouldn't remember it. But take what I have said seriously. You ever come on my show, do that again, Kojopoku. It will not be pleasant. Don't do that again. That's a warning.
Well, if you repeat
now,
it,
the Ghanaian Times newspaper, maybe you can go on other platforms and disrespect some hosts not here. You don't do that. You are my friend, and outside of here, we are bosom friends.
You. And you and I know I have not disrespected you. I just pointed something out.
The Ghanaian Times newspaper.
You can voice it out.
Commits to anti-corruption issues. Coalition demands from political parties. Roads Minister orders KMA to stop construction of buildings in waterways in Kumasi. Ni Odai Into family appeals to Lands Commission for fairness in land demarcation exercise. And at NDC's Youth Manifesto launch, we'll create the jobs for you, Mahama, assures the youth. On the back page, Mepe Health Center gets $18.7 million Ghana cedis equipment. Of course, they are using the dollar equivalent. And GHS, 7 others signed MOU to promote healthy life interventions nationwide. Well, let's look at the story on corruption. I really want us to quickly get into that story. So, as political parties finalize their 2024 election manifestos, the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition has challenged them to ensure their promises to combat corruption are clearly reflected in these policy documents. The coalition has consequently proposed a number of anti-graft issues they expect the political parties to show commitment to in their manifestos before they launch them in the coming days. We've already seen some of those launches. Now, the proposals include an amendment of the Political Parties Act, formulation of a law to regulate campaign financing, passage of the Code of Public Officers Bill, and expansion of the legal definition of corruption. It's a long story, but I suggest that everyone go and read that story on page 11 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper because it has a lot in there in respect of curbing corruption and the ways we can actually do that. The Economy Times, utility tariffs, fuel prices, and exchange rate threaten inflation outlook. And the continuous upward adjustment in utility tariffs, increases in ex-pump fuel prices, and the recent exchange rate pressure are likely to pose a major risk to inflation outlook for 2024. According to the central bank, these developments have resulted in a slightly elevated inflation profile for the year. There's also that story, Ghana ranks favorably on corruption. That's according to an RMB, Rand Merchant Bank report. The final paper I'll do so we can go The Daily Guide, Baumia's digitalization agenda game changer, ex-Canadian minister. I'll empower the youth. That's according to former President Mahama. And the caption there, Mahama's free level 100 policy stokes fire. And NPP will win 2024 elections. That's according to NAPO. Kofi, I'll start with you for your quick thoughts. Then I'll take Kojo's quick thoughts. And we shall wrap the conversation.
Ben, I would like to know more about this R&B post, right? The one that you just talked about, that Ghana ranked highly on corruption. I don't, in my whole lifetime, I've never remembered any time where corruption is as high as it is in Ghana today. Things are very difficult. Opportunities are only available to people in power, people that know people in power and all of that stuff. I think the corruption index should be higher than what you just said. So I'll take my time to read that to learn more. But I want to touch briefly on the youth, the town hall that we're talking about. Ben, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead. Just be brief. Be very brief. I can hear you, Kofi.
Okay. Now, I heard about the Youth Manifesto launch, right? Just like we're talking about. I think the former president assured the youth that his 24-hour economy policy and his plan to invest in key areas of the economy, these are policies that will create jobs for the people, and provide avenues for, entrepreneurship and innovation. And I believe that this is all that the youth in the country are asking for.
Right.
Equal opportunity to find a job or to pursue their ambitions in business. Unfortunately, in today's Ghana, our nation today, like I said, you need to know somebody. And if you don't know somebody, you are languishing and you have no opportunity. So I think that this manifesto is something that will inspire the youth a lot.
All right. Thank you very much for those final thoughts. Kojo, your final thoughts as well, and we wrap.
Well, most of the coalition on corruption have presented their presentation to the MPP manifesto. We've taken a lot of them into consideration, and when it's launched on Sunday, a lot of you would applaud the Dr. Bawumia manifesto for proposing a lot to do with check on corruption. Like I said, we've taken that part very, very serious in that manifesto. Again, let me go back onto the point I made earlier, which is the issue of the job employment for the massive youth that Mr. John Dramani Mahama is proposing. The how is not there. Like I said, when you now tell somebody that, look, I'm going to marry you and give you only chop money for 1 year, what happens to the rest of the years that you are married to that person? I think that Ghana, we should look at education differently, academic and technical. Vocational jobs are very key. That is free now. So the free TVET is very important for the youth of today. So for us, look, it's much ado about nothing. When our manifesto comes out next week, Sunday, everybody will be able to look at it. It's like a box of chocolate. You dip your hand in there and there's something in there for everybody.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining the conversation. Kojo Poku is an energy analyst. Dr. Wisdom Dogbe is a financial analyst. We wish you the best of the day. Well, right before we get into sports, this segment is always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And they are offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. All you have to do, reach out to them at any of their branches, starting with here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji State, Tema Committee 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama Nzema. If you'd like to call them, which I proffer that you do, these are the numbers you can reach them on. 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports is up next. You want to stay for that.
You're welcome to the sports segment on the AM show with me, Haruna Mubarak. To our first story, and Ghana Athletics President Bao Fusene is urgently sounding the alarm, demanding immediate financial support from the government to improve the country's sprinters ahead of the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles, following Ghana's disappointing performance in track and field at the recently ended Paris Olympics. Bao warns that without timely intervention, the nation's chances of making a mark will continue to fade.
Boshu, James Daisy, Rose, and Doris, some of them are 20, 21, 22. They can still be within that range for the next 4 years. But as a policy or as a program, we still need to have a young, less than 18, 16 years, but one of them will be ready for the 4 years. Because if you see those very rarely you see a very rare talent that they come out 20, they come out 18, 16, 17 to win the world championship. It is there, but it's very rare. I can count them. Karami James was 18. Alex Felix was also 18. Tobago was 18 when he won the World Junior Championship, and at 21 he won the Olympic Games. Some of them are there, but to able to develop from JSS to the Olympic in Los Angeles 2028 will be a very difficult thing to achieve. But the time is yes, it's pretty short. But what we can do is to get these who are young around 2021, start giving them financial support now, for them to prepare themselves to the next year Olympics. Now, you remember 2016, the same discussion in your studio.
Yes, right here.
Yes, right here.
Yeah.
The same funding. What did we do? That was that was which competition? What Olympic Games? That was the Rio.
Rio, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do we prepare for the Tokyo Olympics? We had this occasion, this conversation several times. So I don't know. If we don't take time, the next 8 years, we'll still come back to continue this conversation again. What we need to do is to look for funding for this national talent. Let them follow them, their programs, their progression, right from now to the 2028. I've made this as one of my projects that I want to be the first president of Ghana Athletics to win an Olympic medal. That's what I said in my inaugural speech.
To football now, and Asante Kotoko head coach Prosper Nate Ogum is confident in his team's ability to emerge as strong contenders for the upcoming Ghana Premier League title. Now, following a 6th place finish last season, Kotoko parted ways with over 20 players and brought in around 11 new additions. Ogum is impressed with the new signings and believes they will correct their shortcomings of the past.
I think they are very good players. Technically, they are very good. They are able to exhibit the basics in the game, the basic and the advanced technical characteristics of the positions that they play. They are comfortable on the ball. They are fast, they are strong on the ball, and you can see that they are very, very confident as individual players and as a group. So I'm happy I tracked them, and then I've been able to get them. I think they are going to give us a new face with respect to our performance. So I'm happy we've gotten them. What they want is what we have brought to their doorsteps. If you look at some of the individual players, they are players that I think they themselves as supporters were having them in mind, thinking, hoping and praying that the coach will also be able to identify them. And fortunately, I think our thoughts and their thoughts also met, and we've been able to bring these players on board. If you look at a player like Emmanuel Entry, he's one of the favorites of the fans. So when they come to the training ground, anything he does with the ball, even if he makes an error, they see it to be normal. And it's a clear indication that the players and the supporters are all at the same page. And what actually it is communicating to me is that the supporters have some confidence in the players, and the players also have confidence in the supporters. If you look at the way they trooped to the training grounds yesterday and today, I don't think in recent times we've been seeing this. It's something that we've seen, I think, for some years back. But
a very long time.
Yeah, I think my first coming to
it was
something similar. But for now, I think the numbers are so huge that I'm even amazed. So it's good.
Commitments to establish a dedicated ministry for youth development. This ministry will centralize the coordination of youth initiatives in Ghana. It will facilitate job creation. It will promote entrepreneurship. It will provide scholarships and enhance youth participation in decision-making, while ensuring the effective implementation of the National Youth Authority Act. Despite various initiatives, a significant gap still exists between the skills offered by educational institutions and the demands of our job market. Only about 10% of our young people receive formal skills training, and thereby hampering their employability and their economic prospects. This current situation is detrimental to innovation and economic growth, and particularly affecting artisans and craftsmen who need access to modern tools and training.
And so those are snippets we're bringing you as we veer into our big stories. Yesterday, that youth manifesto launched by the NDC. Former President Mahama unveiled his elaborate plan for education in his youth manifesto. Now, among the raft of measures, he made mention of a few things: dedicated funding for free senior high school. He also made mention of other aspects of what they are going to use, for example, to fund that endeavor. A no academic fees policy for level 100 students, which we've already started talking about. Free tertiary education for disabled persons, and then abolishing the double track system. Well, we'll probe these matters this morning. We get into the feasibility and the funding of some of these. And joining the conversation, we have Dr. Peter Anti, who is with the Institute for Educational Studies. Doc, good morning. Dr. Anti, good morning.
Good morning, Ben.
It's a pleasure having you join the conversation.
How are you?
Hello,
Good
Dr.
morning,
Anti.
Ben. How are you?
I am well. I am well. It's much better now.
Sure.
Yeah. So
can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Now, we have you on the conversation because we are focusing on education this morning. And we want to find out from you the very basics. We've heard Kofi Asari of Africa Education Watch speak to these issues. But for you, hearing the former president talk about some of these matters, especially free SHS, and then the bit about level, what did you make generally of the talk or the rhetoric on education as far as this NDC Youth Manifesto is concerned? Dr. Anti, can you hear me? Hello, Dr. Peter Anti. All right, so the internet connection, I think, is pretty poor. So, Dr. Anti, if you can hear me, we'll try to get back to you and work it out from there. But let's take a quick look at some of what you're seeing on your screen currently. The launch of the NDC's Youth Manifesto. In terms of similarities with the 2020 manifesto, upskilling youth in digital skills and introducing a 24-hour economy policy. That is one of those we are looking at. Then, from there, we can also talk about, if we can just move on to the next one. So that's the first bit mentioned. The next one, training 1 million youth in coding, and tied to that, establishing a ministry of youth development. All of that in there. So training 1 million youth in coding and establishing a ministry of youth development. Then we can also talk about, in terms of the focus on education, one, that dedicated funding for free senior high school. Then 2, a no academic fees policy for level 100 students. Then free tertiary education for disabled persons, and also abolishing the double track system. We can also look at it in terms of the description of the amounts that are involved. No academic fees for level 100 students, for example. So average fees for level 100s, 2,000 Ghana cedis. Average number of students, 125,000 students. The total cost, 250 million Ghana cedis. So 250 million Ghana cedis. And then if you look at the revenue forecast in billions of Ghana cedis, you would look at 7.93 billion, and that rising trajectory all the way to 13.3 billion in terms of the revenue forecast, which could actually lead to provision of these services. Dr. Anti.
Hello.
Okay, it's good. I can hear you now. Let me just wrap up on some of these slides. Then you look at the budgetary allocations as well. In terms of 2017 to now, you would see some 400 million, and it's been incremental ever since, only dipping in 2021 and then continuing all the way to 2024, 2.76 billion. And that is specifically for free SHS. Okay, let me bring in Dr. Peter Anti now. Doc, so I posed the question to you earlier. If you got the question, I would just like to get your basic understanding of education a la the Youth Manifesto as presented by the NDC yesterday.
Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, this is an indication that the NDC wants to put the youth at the forefront, and they want to take care of the needs of the young people in the country. It's also an indication that the NDC believes that the biggest thing that you can do for the young people in this country is to fund them education. And for me, that is a very important point that we need to make, because most reports since 2020 in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, have indicated that there's a teeming number of young people who are either not well educated or unemployed, and the government in these countries need to pay particular attention to the number of young people who are gradually being prepared to fit into the system. So listening to them and reading the documents that were presented gives me an indication that the NDC seems to be in a position or position themselves to help build up the capacity of the young people in the country so that they will be able to contribute their quota to the economic development of the country.
Now, if you look at some of the proposals as far as free SHS is concerned, they have already said that they will review free SHS, for example. Then you come into the bit about tertiary education at the level 100 level and the costs they will take. What are your reflections on them?
I think taking free SHS, I think it's a welcoming news. You're already aware of our position with how free SHS have been implemented, and the fact that we are not getting the best out of it, and the challenges that have come with it. I think that the NDC sitting outside government for 8 years might have studied the challenges of the free senior high school and are coming out with proposals that would make it better. My little challenge with their position on the addition of the private schools is that they need to come out clearly so that we know the modalities that is going to it. I know that the private schools have been talking about this for a long time. And so if they would want to include the private schools in the free senior high school, I think that we will need to understand the modalities and how that is going to be carried out. Whether it's going to be paying a certain amount of money to the private school owners so that the parents will top up. And if you do that, what happens to those in the public whose fees are completely being absorbed? So I think that we need more clarity on how they would want to involve the private schools. I know that they are talking about utilizing the various infrastructure available for the private schools to deal with double track, which for me is an interesting proposal because some of the private schools are virtually empty. So if they are proposing to remove double track, what they need to do is to provide infrastructure. And I think the alternative that they are looking at is to speak to these owners of private schools who have schools that are virtually empty, go into some sort of arrangement with them, and then they can proceed to and get some of the students in there. We also want to know the modalities, how this is going to be carried out, and what it is for the private school owners. So we would need more clarity on some of the things that have been said. But my biggest disappointment is the payment of fees for all the 100 students. I've been hearing other versions where I'm told that they really meant that we are going to work this through the student loan system. But and you would agree with me that one of the biggest criticisms of the free senior high school policy from our side, from the NDC, from civil society organizations, have been the financing model that was adopted, which technically is a wholesale financing model. You are paying for everybody. Every stakeholder that has spoken against the free senior high school or submit suggestions for the free senior high school have said that we could have a certain kind of targeting that would ensure that those who really need help would be those who will support. And this is a position that has been pushed even by the NDC. So then yesterday, coming back to tell us that they are going to pay all of 100 students their admission fees, or what they call academic visa fees. Ideally, when you are going to level 100, there are, I think, 2 or 3 kinds of fees that you pay. You pay admission fees, and then you pay your hall or hostel fees, and then sometimes maybe 1 or 2 dues that you pay here and there. So basically, what they are talking about is admission fees. Is not academic visa fees, it's admission fees. Now, why would you want
you say it's not academic user fees, it's what?
Hello?
You were saying they are not academic user fees, they are what? The last point you made.
I'm saying that when you get admission into the university, there are basically 2 fees that you pay. Admission fees and then residential fees. So the academic user fee that we are talking about, that is why people are saying that there's nothing for academic user fee. Academic user fee they are talking about encompasses the admission fee that the student pays, which is somewhere around 2,000, depending on the program that you are offering. Okay. So I think that what they wanted to talk about is the admission fee for the 100. And if that is what you want to do, why would you want to pay for everybody? I am not so much interested with the funding. Yes, if a government wants to do something, he will find the money to do it. So as for the money, there's a high possibility that they will be able to get the money and then implement it. But what does that speak to us in terms of principle? Principle in terms of you not supporting the idea of a wholesale financing model for free senior high school, but turning around to come and say that you are going to do a wholesale financing for level 100 admitting sort of. Again, in principle, you are saying that you are bringing in private schools for free senior high school, but you are excluding private tertiary institutions for your level 100 free payment. So where lies the principle? Where lies the consistency? And I think that is a big problem with policy formulation and policy discussion, because we feel that there should be consistency in terms of policy delivery and exportation, so that when you are not for wholesale financing, you don't propose a policy that tends to propose wholesale financing. When you are for private schools and going free senior high school, you don't propose a policy that excludes private tertiary institutions from the same policy that you are implementing. And this is where I feel that there was a little problem with the presentation in terms of the position to provide first free admission in the various public tertiary institutions.
All right, hold for me, Dr. Anti. Let me also bring in Dr. Clement Apak. He is Deputy ranking member on the Education Committee of Parliament. Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining the conversation.
It's always a pleasure.
Can you clarify, of course, I'll just start with the basics of what the former president said yesterday in that youth manifesto on education. You've heard Dr. Peter Ante reflect on a bit of free SHS and a review, but he has a fundamental problem with this bit about paying the AFUFs. What are your takeaways from yesterday before we get into the specifics?
Well, like many Ghanaians, I was excited to hear our flag bearer speak to the youth of this nation on the occasion of International Youth Day. And of course, it also coincided with the launch of our youth manifesto. I believe everyone would agree that matters to do with the youth are perhaps the most pressing. I reckon that a couple of weeks ago, there was a report that indicated that we had about 2 million young people who were neither in school and or engaged in the form of employment. So we have made it a key plank of our campaign to focus heavily on what we can do to give the teeming youth opportunities. Now, in terms of the takeaways, as you rightly indicated, in the area of education, we have indicated the introduction of the National Apprenticeship Program, which is also equally important, because we ought not to forget that it is not every young person who is currently pursuing formal education in the way that you and I understand. Of course, he also spoke about improving the free senior high school program by ensuring that we get dedicated and sustainable sources of funding for the program. And we would want to abolish the dreaded double track system and to ensure that students are all in school at the same time and they come home at the same time. The issue of including private schools in the delivery of the program is one that is not new. But those who are minded to have looked at our 2020 manifesto, it is something that we said and something that we intend to implement. Matters to do with food and feeding of students. You and I have talked about that severally. Parents have talked about it. It continues to be a challenge. And so the proposal to decentralize the procurement of food and to empower the heads or managers of our secondary schools to be able to identify and procure their own food is something that we are certainly going to implement. I think one of the issues that seems to have generated a lot of public discourse, I would say excitement, is the proposal to fully absorb the fees, academic fees of level 100 students in terms of those who are going to enroll in tertiary institutions that will include universities, colleges of education, nursing training colleges, and what have you. And I think that is a proposal that has been thought through. We say so because the challenge has tended to be within the context of the first year of university education. That is where a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and indeed, it is also the stage where some students, although may qualify to take their places in tertiary institutions, because of the inability to finance their education, at least for the first year, many of them do not take their places in tertiary institutions. And so that is why the proposal has been made that we would take up the tuition of those who would enter first year if we are given the mandate, effective January 2025. And by our calculation and estimates, if you look at the average of about 2,000 Ghana cedis in terms of the fee that first-year students would pay. And you consider the figures that at least Africa Education Watch has put out, suggesting that some 225,000 thereabout students entered first year in 2023-2024. And you do the figures. If we were to use that as a basis, it will mean that government will have to spend less than 250 million Ghana cedis to sponsor, or if you like, finance level 100 students for the first year. And I think that we are capable of mobilizing the resources to do that.
How are you going to mobilize those resources?
Well, first of all, if we were to look at the current trajectory, where the Office of Government Machinery in the past 3 to 4 years has not received less than 1 billion Ghana cedis. In fact, for this year in question, the allocation for the Office of Government Machinery was in excess of 2 billion.
I'm looking at the figures. I see about what? From 2017, about 1.5 billion, all the way to 2024, over 2 billion. And you're saying that because of that, you're going to dip your hands into that?
Yes,
or
but
you're
we are
going to downsize?
We are going to downsize and to redirect.
Downsize and redirect.
That money to cover the financing of first-year students, which we think is more important.
What will go into the downsizing?
Because we don't believe that the request that this government has been making.
No, I am saying specifically what will go into the downsizing. Is it human resource? Is it expenditure, just cutting expenditure? The expenditure must be cut from somewhere.
We'll cut expenditure. Because if you look at the Office of Government Machinery, and this is essentially the presidency.
Right.
Indeed, we up to today, as a minority, have never really fully appreciated, and we do not believe that that quantum of money that goes to the Office of the President is needed. We believe very strongly that, for lack of a better word, the amounts that are requested under this government to finance activities under the Office of Government Machinery are padded and used to finance direct partisan activities. And so, if we compare what we did when we were in power vis-a-vis what they are doing, and we were not asking for $1 billion, not even close, for the Office of Government Machinery, we believe we can cut down and then we can rechannel those extra resources to finance the absorption of fees for first year level 100 University of Ghana students. And there is a lot of wastage in the system, clearly. I mean, obviously, we would not be spending some 339 million Ghana cedis to finance the construction of a cathedral. We would not be paying a CEO and a staff for an inland port, a port in Keta, so to speak, for almost 8 years with no work done. We will not be paying almost $12 million to a contractor ostensibly.
So from where you said, you're basically saying you're going to stem the tide of corruption and deal with some of the expenditures that you feel you can cut, and that is how you're going to finish.
Voila.
Okay, so let me ask you, when you come initially, when do you plan for this to start?
Well, by our estimation, we wish to implement it in our first year in office.
In your first year in office?
That will be correct.
Is that feasible?
That should be feasible.
In your first year in office?
Because remember that the academic year...
Hold for me. In your first year in office, you still want to tackle the monster of corruption to yield the sort of results, the sort of savings that you'll be able to expend on.
Yes.
You are still going to have a government machinery at a certain level, no matter what cuts you want to make. And you already can prognosticate that you can get this money within your first year and get this policy running?
No, remember that the academic year usually begins in September, as far as I know.
Right.
So if a new government comes into power, and we believe we are going to be that new government, we will be sworn into office on 7th of January 2025. Between the 7th of January and September, we believe that we should have been able to at least find ways to mobilize these resources to finance the students for the first year. So it is feasible, and we believe we can do it. If we didn't believe we could do it, we wouldn't announce it.
Let me ask you this question. Is that crucial right now?
Yes.
The payment of these sums of money, whether 2,000 Ghana cedis or whatever it may be, at this point in time, your administration says it wants to review free SHS, right?
That's correct.
Reviewing free SHS will come with some logistical constraints, some monetary constraints here and there, whichever way you look at it. Why don't you tackle that first? Why come through with something like this, which will be another draw on the public purse, sums of money that, especially under an IMF program, you could channel into other things? In any case, free SHS was free for all. Your party criticized that. You're going to do another free for all where people, whether private or public, people who have money or don't have money, who go to these public institutions will benefit from there. What is the reasoning behind it?
The questions are many into one, but let's take it from where you left off. Remember that we have said that it is going to be for level 100. It is not going to be for 100, 200, 300, and 400.
I didn't suggest that. I said level 100.
Yes.
The first year.
So you cannot, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, compare that to what is going on within the context of the free senior high school.
At least at the level of level 100.
Yes.
It is going to be free for all.
That is what we have said.
Do we need that?
Now, also remember, I'll come to do we need that, but also remember that in our call for the review of the free senior high school policy, we never said that it was because we were opposed to a wholesale financing of all students. What we have said was that there are implementation challenges, challenges to do with food, challenges to do with accommodation, challenges to do with the academic calendar, challenges to do with overworked teaching and non-teaching staff, challenges to do with furniture. And we have spoken about all of these challenges, and we have said that what we want is to have a free senior high school program that is sustainable, a free senior high school program that would deliver the maximum returns. And that can only happen if we address the implementation challenges. So whilst there is the general debate from civil society and other persons in the educational space, for us to look at the entire architecture of the free senior high school policy and the way it is being implemented, to which we agree that we ought to have a national debate. We have not opposed the financing of students, and we have never asked for a discrimination in terms of who can and who cannot afford. That has never been our position, as far as I know. Now, when you ask the question about...
I do think I've heard some of your party members suggest that, especially on the back of the IMF, if you watch the documentation on the back of our IMF support program, they made mention of the fact that free SHS, in its current form, under this implementation, free for all, is not the best policy dynamic. And some
that is what the IMF said.
Have gone down that road. So
our flag bearer has not said
I'm wondering now.
No, some may say,
the points that have been made.
But I would only speak to what the flag bearer has said. He is the leader of the party.
Right.
He is our flag bearer. So regardless of what anyone in the party may have said, in fact, your position and what you are proposing is dwarfed by what the flag bearer has said. He is our flag bearer. He has made these pronouncements. And I want to say that what he has said is what is now the official position of the NDC.
Let me put this to you. This policy now, is it not just a gimmick to win votes?
Oh, that
if you look at our economic situation and coming through with this proposal at this time,
that would
not just something to secure votes.
That wouldn't be fair. You see, as a member of parliament, and let me speak personally, just between the last week, Friday, and today, I can show you the number of requests I have received from students who have gained admission into public tertiary institutions and cannot afford to mobilize resources, and their parents cannot afford to help them mobilize resources.
But that is an age-old problem. It didn't start today.
But the numbers keep growing. And that is why this is relevant, because the first year is always the most challenging. And let's be honest, the Student Loan Trust, if it was functioning the way it ought to be, if not for the fact that this government has capped Get Fund, and because of that capping, Get Fund is unable to mobilize enough resources and to provide enough resources to the Student Loan Trust to meet its obligations, most of these challenges wouldn't exist. But guess what? Get Fund has been collateralized. Get Fund has been capped. The source of funding for the Student Loan Trust for onward disbursement of loans to the students is Get Fund. And so there is a challenge. And for first years, it is even much more challenging because they don't really know the system. They don't know how to go about even applying for these loans, and even the requirements make it cumbersome. So by taking this burden of absorbing the fees of first year tertiary level students at level 100, at least we are reducing the stress and the pressure with the hope that when we retool and resituate Get Fund by decapping it and ensuring that the collateralization is reversed, Get Fund should then be able to provide the Student Loan Trust with sufficient funding so that the students going forward would then be able to apply and get the needed support through the Student Loan Trust to continue. So our focus on the first year is very important because many students who otherwise should have taken up their places in tertiary institutions are not able to because of this singular barrier.
Okay, so I have this question coming through. I beg you, does their financial situation change after level 100, or do they all do level 100 and then drop out? Struggling to understand the theory of change behind this. So what this person is basically saying, hold for me. What this person is basically saying is, you want to help them in level 100 because you feel it is the most difficult period.
That is correct.
After that, does their financial situation magically change? What then prevents them from dropping out after level 100?
Well, what prevents them from dropping out is because we are going to decap Get Fund. We will work to resolve the collateralization of Get Fund. When Get Fund gets the maximum revenue that it ought to get Fund would be able to make bigger allocations to the Student Loan Trust. The Student Loan Trust will be able to cover more, and if possible, all students, and will be able to give them amounts that are commensurate with the current economic situations. And so on that basis, they should be able to go through. So that is the thinking.
And so you think that should suffice to keep them in school?
I believe so.
Level?
I believe so. Because if the Student Loan Trust were to be efficient and the amounts allocated were sufficient and fit for purpose, there shouldn't be a reason why students should not be able to finance their education by taking the loan. When I was in school, I took a student loan, and I was able to pursue my education by taking a student loan.
Let me ask you, so this support that you're going to give the level 100 students, what goes into it? You've touched on it, but so admissions, or that is not part of it? Residential, are you going to pay for their accommodation? Is it going to be tuition? Just explain further for me. I just want further clarity on that point.
Well, what we know is that this is going to cover admission and tuition.
When you say admission, so the process of application?
No, when you are admitted.
Or once they get admitted?
Once you get admitted, you pay tuition, right?
So tuition.
No, so admission is out because I don't think there's a charge for admission.
Exactly. So yes. Tuition.
It's going to be tuition.
The tuition fees are what you are taking care of?
That is correct.
Not accommodation in any
No, residential and all of that is not included.
If you are supporting them in this way, in terms of tuition, what makes you think that you can help them with tuition, but they will be able to pay for accommodation?
Well, because from the request that we get, and from what I know, those arrangements are usually something that parents will do their best to mobilize. And indeed, usually parents are able to mobilize some, but not all. So if we can meet them halfway, so to speak, then it makes it easier for them to progress.
You say this has been clearly thought through and that it's going to be properly executed, but as my good old professor who would usually listen to such conversations and send me some insight, and he's a former vice chancellor, by the way, but I never mention his name. He says, when the universities announced the AFUF, which you are fully aware of, in 1998, 1999, the then Rawlings government said they would pay for the students. The vice chancellors, while agreeing, however, said that the students should pay and that the refund be given them when government brought the money. Do you see what they were proposing? Let the students pay. When you then pay, we'll refund the money to the students. After 2 years of the arrangement, government stopped paying. You see, we've gone down part of this road before. 1998, 1999. Why do we want to do this again?
Well, we've indicated to you that data shows that there are several millions of students who are neither in school and are not engaged in any way, shape, or form. We also know, as we have justified and narrated, that the difficulty usually is within the ability of the student to gain admission and to take up that opportunity in the first year. I've also narrated to you how we are going to mobilize the resources. And I've told you how we are going to revamp and retool the Student Loan Trust and what we are going to do to ensure that GetFund is able to provide sufficient resources for the Student Loan Trust to take over after the first year. And so, yes, we may have gone through a somewhat similar situation that may not have worked out. But you see, we are not a group,
a very similar situation.
We are
that
not,
did not work out.
We are not a group that is averse to reviews. So we are not saying that when we started, perhaps there wouldn't be one or two issues.
So you expect that as you started, there could be challenges?
It can be subjected to review. And if we start the implementation and issues come up, we are willing to conduct an assessment and a review and to see how we can resituate it, so to speak, going forward. So I agree with Prof that yes, we can learn from the past. But past failures should not prevent us from making the effort to address much more contemporary and pressing challenges. And we believe very strongly that the challenges to do with our young people today are much more severe than the time that Prof is referring to.
All right. Before I go back to Dr. Anti, because he had initially said that his biggest disappointment...
He is speaking about principle.
Hold for me. His biggest disappointment was this bit about the payment of fees for level 100 students. But two quick questions. What do you think the impact of this will be? You've seen free SHS executed with all its problems, but also what it has achieved. What do you think the impact of this policy will be if your administration gets the nod of the Ghanaian voter and you start implementing? How do you think it will impact the ordinary Ghanaian? And two, I'm sure you are fully aware, Ghanaians, especially after these last 8 years, are very averse to experimentation. We don't want matrai makwe, trial and error. That is basically what you are saying. You're going to try. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you go in for some sort of review. Ghanaians don't have the patience for that now. Are you aware of that?
Your last point, I disagree with. We are going to implement
what
a
do you
policy.
Disagree with?
And anyone who knows about policy and policy implementation would agree that once you start the implementation of a policy, it is expected that the policy will be reviewed from time to time. That is a given. So just because we are being honest to indicate that if we implement policies, we are prepared and willing to subject those policies to reviews. Does not mean or presuppose that we are anticipating that the policy will not function the way and manner in which we intend it to. So it is important that we clarify that. But I agree with you on the bigger scale that Ghanaians indeed have become averse to Matrai Makwe. We believe that we are suffering the consequences of that. And so, yes, in principle, yes, this is not the time to engage in frivolous experiments. But I don't think that what we are proposing is frivolous. I think it is a well-reasoned approach to address a barrier that stands between the transition from secondary to tertiary.
Okay.
And so we believe that dealing with this matter the way we have prescribed it is going to impact positively, because students who otherwise should be in public or should be taking classes in public institutions, tertiary institutions, at this moment, are not taking classes and are not pursuing tertiary education because of this initial barrier that we are talking about. And I know some who have not been able to take their places in tertiary institutions because of the inability to mobilize the needed resources to ensure that they take up their places. So ultimately, it is going to augment our human capital. We are going to give opportunities to many who have qualified to take up places in tertiary institutions and have not been able to because of this barrier. So it is going to have a positive effect on us as a nation.
Dr. Anti, I hope you are listening to all that is being said. I'll come to you shortly, but just a final point before I go to Dr. Anti. When you look at the proliferation of promises, I mean, I'm seeing it on both sides, and I'm beginning to scratch my head with some of the promises I am hearing from different parties. But let's stick with what promises you have been making. You are making quite a number of them, even as far as this youth manifesto is concerned, from coding to everything in between. And I'm asking myself, aren't you over-promising? Which is, the devil is in some of these promises you make, whether you can fulfill them. And the other bit, is it merely because you think Ghanaians like freebies? We like free things. And so let's promise them free stuff and they will vote for us.
Well, if you took note of what our flag bearer presented yesterday, you would notice that he was very specific. And this has to do with the youth. We keep emphasizing that because you and I know that not just as a country, not just as a sub-region, but as a continent, the challenge of youth unemployment and the dangers that portends are scary. So when we talk about giving opportunities to young people, which is what we are trying to do, to give them a helping hand, to give them a leg up, I don't think that these promises are simply, to use your word, gimmicks, just intended for political expediency and purposes. I mean, is it acceptable that we are told that we have about 2 million young people who are simply doing nothing? Doesn't that scare you? They are doing nothing.
You're talking of the NEETs.
They are doing nothing.
Not in education, employment, training.
Is that not scary?
Right, I see.
That is very worrisome.
I have an interesting thought for you. So as you say all of this, would you then say that if we had enough resources as a country, maybe we shouldn't just be doing level 100? And I'm asking you this intentionally. Then we should extend it to the rest of the ladders of tertiary education if the possibilities were there. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. If I had a choice, if we had enough resources, I would have made that proposal. That education from kindergarten to university should be fully funded by the state.
I see.
Indeed, our constitution does make.
I knew you would go back to that.
Because that is so.
I just saw you going there, and you did. Let me bring in Dr. Peter.
No, but I was going to touch on the apprenticeship program, because when we are speaking about the youth, we shouldn't confine ourselves to only those who are in.
Okay, so hold on to your thoughts.
Okay, so let's let
apprenticeship. Let me bring in Dr. Auntie. Dr. Auntie, having listened to Dr. Clement Apak, I wanted him to break down how they were going to fund this and everything, and we've unpacked a lot of it. Are you convinced that this can be done? And if it can, what are some of the bottlenecks you foresee as far as its implementation?
Okay, thank you. Initially, as I indicated, when you talk about whether it can be done or not, it just depends on the will of the person in power, I mean the government. So wherever they will be able to get resources to fund it, they can't do it. That is not a problem, and that's why when I was doing the analysis, I didn't touch on the funding, because the moment to bring in the funding, all other areas that are posing a certain level of challenge will be brought up, corruption, and some will talk about the cathedral and other things, and they will tell you that they will be able to fund it. So you look at what is the intention of doing this. The intention of doing this, as Doc clearly said, was that people are not able to fund their first-year education. And mostly, you look on social media, you see people sourcing for funds. You'll be there, and then all of us, including myself, you will get requests about people who have gotten admission and they cannot access because they don't have money. So that is the basic problem. Doc understands that in terms of policy formulation, you look for alternatives. So what are the alternatives available? One of them is what they are talking about. Another is that you said the academic year starts in September. So from January, probably February to September, that government that is in power will be able to uncap get fund and would also be able to mobilize these resources, amount of money that we are talking about, to fund the 3-level 100 policy.
Would that be enough time? Would that be enough time to attain that feat, at least, like he said? So if his administration comes to power in December, they take over from January. Between then and September, when a new academic year starts, would that be enough time to mop up these resources?
Yes, because he said that they will be able to do that within the first year. So if I'm going by his analysis, it means that amount of money we are talking about, which is almost like 50% of the senior high school money that we are using, can be raised within that 6-7 months. Why don't you push that money to the student loan trust so that students who get admission can really quickly apply, like we know in all other places, where students gain admission, they present their admission letters, and they are given funds to continue to pay for their admission fee and then accommodation. That is a more best alternative and utilization of the scarce resource that they are coming to meet with the IMF in place and everything. You need to look at an alternative that is feasible, that is efficient, and that would not put pressure on the country's coffers at that time. And we know that not everybody would say that we will not be able to pay. And that is the principle that we have preached with this free SHS policy all this while. Now, he said that in the first year, they are paying for the first year. But that's what we did with the free senior high school. In 2017 September, we paid for the first year. And we said that the mode of funding was not efficient, was not appropriate, and should not be continued, because in doing that, you are pushing funds to areas where technically they will not be needed, but because you are offering it for free, everybody would want to come and take. And most stakeholders, Akufo, the former finance minister, and all other stakeholders have mentioned about the mode of funding. So, and I'm surprised that my senior brother is saying that they have not stated this. I think that the records are there. Of course, I've not heard the fact that I talk about that. But most of them, including he himself, when we have had engagements on radio, have agreed with my decision and the position of most civil society organizations that you do not go by wholesale funding in terms of providing education for the people.
So you feel that aspect is a mistake, a repetition of a mistake from free SHS, and rather we should have that money pushed to the student loan trust so that those who need it can get it.
Exactly. And this is what we have talked about, especially when you are anticipating that you're going to have a very empty coffers in terms of the national case. If you are not sure, and I've heard the father talk about that, he doesn't know the extent to which the country has been, the country's funds have been depleted. And when they come, they will open the book and let all Ghanaians know. You are not sure. At the same time, you are promising to fund the first year fees of all students. Okay, so you pay the admission fee. What happens to the residential? Because normally, they don't also get accommodation. So you look, and then as the other people are saying, what happens to their second year? What happens to their third year? What happens to their fourth year? This is not an alternative that you would want to go. This is not a place that you want to, a path that you want to pursue. You would want to pursue a path that is sustainable, that is efficient, and that will yield the same result and release funds for other aspects of education to be addressed. And I think that Doc would agree with me, just that, it's an election year, so.
I'll come to you on further points, but basically then what you're saying is that it could be executed just as free SHS was said and executed, but it is unsustainable. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. You cannot continue to pay for the first year fee of every student who is entering the institution. You can't continue to do that. And that is why we are suggesting that the more potent way to do this is to restructure within the first agreement. If you're able to raise this amount of money that you want to pay for everybody, why don't you put that money to the student loan trust? And then those who really need it, who apply, as soon as they get admission, they get the funding released to them, they pay. And it says the first support, nobody gets left behind. Those who can really go and pay the admission fees will pay. Those who can't pay, source funding from the money that you are going to pay for everybody. If you're doing that, you will get less than 40% of people accessing that fund. 40% of the money will be used. 60% is left. You can use it for other places. That is the same argument made over and over for free senior high school. And it's unfortunate that my senior brother and the party are now taking us back to this old argument, which has been flawed for a long time.
I see.
Well,
you have quick reactions. Hold for me.
Dr. Auntie.
Hold. I know you are very.
He has misrepresented me.
Just hold for me. I'll let you come in. I'll come back briefly to Dr. Auntie on some quick points, and then I'll go to Professor Lord Mensah, who has also joined the conversation. Prof, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, and good morning to our viewers.
It's a pleasure having you join the conversation. Respectfully, just hold for me briefly. There's just a wrap-up I want to do on this, and I'll be right back to you. Dr. Park.
Well, I understand that civil society, has been making some pronouncements and has taken some positions, important positions, I would say. But personally, I have never been one of those who has questioned the wholesale implementation of the free senior high school policy. So I just wanted my younger brother and good friend, Dr. Auntie, to note that.
Okay, that is.
And
clear.
I have said,
that
I speak to what the flag bearer has said.
Right.
So even if others have said, the flag bearer didn't say that. And once he's the one who has brought forth this policy, I agree with him. And I think it is in the right direction. So I just wanted to correct that. This is not to say that alternative ideas about the way forward and all of that are not necessary or that they are not important. But that is not a position that I have taken in the past.
Okay, just clarity on this. There are other matters that, I just want you to tease quick thoughts on. He also spoke about dedicated funding for free SHS. He spoke about free education being extended not just to the public, but private senior high institutions as well. And then as for abolishing the double track system, that has been spoken of in the past. And then this bit about free tertiary education for disabled persons. You remember I was telling you that there seems to be this proliferation of promises.
Yes.
All these things you are saying, How are you going to execute them in 1 minute? How feasible are they?
Well, the free tertiary education for persons with disabilities, it's not new. But we proposed it in our 2020 manifesto.
Right.
The only reason why it is not happening is because we are not in power. We were not given the mandate.
Right.
So that is not new.
Okay, so that is taken care of.
Including the private schools in the delivery of the free senior school program. It's not also new. In fact,
but we're already struggling with the public, and now you want to add private?
Well, the private schools have always been collaborating partners to government in education service delivery. And in fact, in the engagements with the owners of the private schools, from what I know, they proposed that rather than having their buildings and schools that were doing well before the introduction of the free senior school policy, which then led to their exclusion, they are willing to take students at the same rate at which government is funding students to pursue their secondary education in the public secondary schools. So we see it as a win-win situation. That will not only just help reduce the numbers and overcrowding, even as we work to augment existing institutions with additional infrastructure and to build new ones.
So that point is made.
It will also bring an end to the double track in a much faster way than
so by extending it to the private, you also abolish the double track.
Yes, because if they are taking some of the students, then definitely the numbers of students who would go to the public secondary schools will reduce. And therefore, would then be able
of this dedicated funding. I want us to move quickly because I want us to get to the other issues. The dedicated funding for free SHS. So does it go back to the GET fund and the corruption and the bits you spoke about? Is that how you're going to raise the money for?
Yes, but remember too that we have said that in our first 100 days in office, there's going to be a national stakeholders forum that will bring all stakeholders to have a dialogue on the free senior school policy and its implementation. So whilst we have our own ideas, we still believe that we ought to come to the table with everyone else, including Peter Pate, of Institute of Educational Studies and EduWatch, Charles,
you bring all of them on board.
And then we can all agree on the way forward. So we are not saying that in spite of what we are proposing, we are going to shut the door. Because we can't claim to have all the wisdom.
It's interesting you say this now, that you want to engage the Dr. Aunties and the rest. My curiosity stems from the fact that even with this bit about paying for level 100s and no academic fees and all of that, did you engage them? Did you engage vice chancellors and the rest to find out what their feedback was on that?
We have not, because this is a specific policy that is targeted at addressing a specific issue.
All right. Dr. Auntie, I'll give you a minute and a half just for reactions on this, and then we move away from that. Dr. Auntie.
Thank you.
So it has to be very brief.
I admire the receptiveness of Dr. Park, as always, and I believe that we can continue to talk about this, and definitely their position will change as we engage further.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, let me bring into the conversation Professor Lord Mensah. Prof, I hope we didn't just lose Professor Lord Mensah. Professor Mensah, are you with us? Hello, Professor Mensah.
Yes, I am with you.
All right. Thank God
you're still. Please? I'm with you.
Yes, I can hear you. I don't know whether you have a quick take on the academic or educational issues we've dealt with. If not, then we go right into the 24-hour economy and the proposals per the former president, even as he spoke about this youth manifesto as well. If you have any thoughts on education, we can get into that. If not, then we go straight to the 24-hour economy.
Yeah, pass it on to the 24.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead into that. But I thought you would be interested in the level 100s and the
elaborative discussions on. Hello.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hello. The line is breaking. Hello.
I can hear you loud and clear, Professor Mensah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I'm saying I thought you'd be interested in the level 100 situation where the NDC is proposing paying for their tuition. What do you make of it, if you just want to share your quick thoughts with us?
I think you are breaking, so I didn't get a question fully.
Level 100s and the NDC paying for their tuition, assuming they come to power. What do you make of it? Is it feasible?
The line is bad.
Okay, I think the connection to Professor Lord Mensah is patchy.
Yeah, I think kind of promises we put out there, you know. Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, so we may have to be careful the promises that we put out there. We know the burden as far as...
Oh my word, it appears the connection is not
the
that
public
good.
balance sheet is correct. Then also looking at the assets that we have. I can say that absorbing, you know, additional cost as far as our expenditure lines are concerned.
Okay, Prof, if you can hear me, we'll try to get you back on the phone so you can express your thoughts. You can flow without any interruptions. It appears the connection is not helping us. But of course, even as we get into that subject, I just wanted, because he lectures at the University of Ghana, to find out what his take is on that bit in respect of level 100s having their tuition paid, which has been clarified now by Dr. Clement Apak in the studio in respect of level 100s and their tuition being paid. But then again, there was talk about the 24-hour economic policy to be implemented in 2025 should the NDC win, and its creation of an enabling environment for young people to thrive. Professor Lord Mensah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear now.
Okay,
I'm on my phone, so I think it's clear.
Great. That's good. We missed the points you were making. Please just go back to the level 100 situation. Address it quickly for us.
Yeah, so I don't know whether a lot of calculations have gone into it, and then how much it will cost the nation to do that. From where I sit, I think at this time...
They are projecting 250 million Ghana cedis, thereabouts. Less than that.
That's quite, you know, substantial. We can look at, you know, extending that kind of money into, you know, providing infrastructure at the SHS level. You know, the SHS level, you know, because of the free SHS, we've gotten a lot of, you know, student numbers at that level. So from where I sit, I think we can channel the funds into, you know, building up more infrastructure at the existing, you know, secondary school. So for instance, you know, my daughter is a holy child. We're looking at possibly getting an expansion of accommodation and all those that can absorb, you know, the congestion that they have at those various schools. So from where I sit, I think we may have to sit down critically and look at where we can pump in such monies and then the benefits that will come with it. But let's also look at, you know, the public burden as far as our expenditure lines are concerned.
Right.
Whether we can be able to absorb this recurrent, you know, cost over the next few years that we're going to have. It's a policy. And, you know, the Ghanaian education policy, normally we don't put sunset clause on them. So for instance, I mean, free SHS, I see it to be an interventional policy where at the moment you will say that kids are supposed to go to school for free. But over time, when the economy becomes better and parents can afford, why should the government continue to carry the burden? So I don't know how long, you know, the flag bearer is looking at this. And, you know, if we continue in that direction, then we'll end up providing freebies to the people at the detriment of, you know, certain growth in certain aspects of the country. So we need to look at the balance very well, rather than, you know, promising, you know, just freebies.
All right. Let's now get to the 24-hour economy. And quoting the former president, he says, if you're hearing about the 24-hour economic initiative for the first time or pretending that you do not know what it is about, please cork your ears and listen. So it goes on and on. But he says, for example, a 24-hour economy will enable one job to be shared across 3 shifts and employ 3 persons, providing job opportunities for 3 workers instead of 1. This policy, which aims to drive economic growth, improve service delivery, and create jobs in both the public and private sectors, will prioritize the needs of our youth. For the policy to thrive, the government will invest in security and public safety measures, including recruiting additional personnel and enhancing street lighting to promote night economic activity. And then he goes on to talk about the public sector's 24-hour services, 24-hour ports and harbor services, 24-hour customs services, DVLA services, passport services, 24-hour manufacturing, 24-hour construction, 24-hour sanitation and waste management, 24-hour retail and tourism services. For you, listening to the former president touch on all of these, what were your chief takeaways? Professor Mensah.
Yeah, what it tells me is that we're looking at adding on to the current existing economic structure. I mean, if you look at an economy that is operating 8 to 12 hours and you're recording a GDP of around 800 and something billion Ghana cedis, then, having an extended, hours going into 24 hours, then it tells me that you can add on to the GDP that we have. The economic output is going to increase because if you look at the night, you may not get all sectors of the economy running 24 hours. But even if we roll out that and then we look at adding a quarter of the current economic output, it should go a long way to increase the growth in our economy. And then also looking at the employment aspect, clearly we are struggling, and the youth these days, the target that they're looking out for is employment. Nothing short of that. And from where I sit, if you are going to have existing structures that can operate, 24 hours and then add on, more jobs, obviously that would be something that I will go all out for. And then also we should be able to appreciate, the current economic situation we find ourselves in. Ghana, we've been borrowing over the past years. And this, borrowed funds has gone into infrastructural development and other things. We cannot continue to operate these infrastructures, that we borrowed for instance, Rich Hospital. We cannot continue to operate it for only 8 to 12 hours.
Right.
We may be underutilizing the facility. And so if we have borrowed for some time and then we've used those monies for infrastructural development, why don't we, change our policy orientation so that we can, optimally utilize these facilities to create jobs and then also, to improve on economic output of the country. So from where I sit, my initial impression when you talk about 24-hour economy, I would say that, yes, it's a policy that I would support, 24 hours, in a day, because it is a policy that I know it will add on to our economy. But then also, we need to appreciate that it's not an economy that I'm expecting, it's not, a policy that I'm expecting the government to own all by itself.
Right.
It should be a policy that will go hand in hand with the private sector. But then, before the private sector comes in, you may have to look at the macroeconomic environment. How is the interest rate, lending rate will be faring on the market. And then also, the ease of doing business, getting business registered and all those. Because if, the government is providing the enabling environment for the private sector, to thrive, we know the private sector employs largest chunk of our workforce. So it shouldn't be a policy that will be owned by government like that. Some experience we've had over the past years where government rolls out policy and it gets confused. It doesn't even know whether the policy is owned by government or they're robbing in the private man. And if the private man is coming in, what's the stake of the private man in the business and what's the stake of the government in the business? So these are things we may have to look at. But for me, where I sit, I think, it's a policy that will help the economy.
All right. Hold for me, Prof. I'll come back to you about a few more points. But when I come back to you, I want you to tell me whether the plan, this 24-hour economy, you say you're in support of it, but is it fairly feasible, very feasible? What will it take to make the execution watertight? I'll come back to you on that. But Dr. Apak, I know you have to move on. Final thoughts from you on the 24-hour economy. Just about a minute, if you can manage.
I agree with Prof. And I think that many Ghanaians, including recognized institutions like the TUC, NUCS, GRASAC, and indeed the chiefs of my constituency, Bulsa South, when His Excellency engaged them as part of his campaign tour of Bulsa South, they pledged support and indeed accepted that the 24-hour economy was something that, if implemented, and we believe it will be done, will change the dynamics of this country's fortunes. So, I mean, the 24-hour economy, as we say, is the game changer. And we expect to execute it to the satisfaction of Ghanaians.
Dr. Clement Apak, we are grateful for your time, for joining the conversation this morning. He, of course, is the Deputy Ranking Member on the Education Committee of Parliament. We also had Dr. Peter Anti, who is with the Institute for Education Studies. But we focus now the rest of the conversation on Professor Lord Mensah. So coming back to you, Prof, is it mildly feasible? Is it very feasible? And what would it take to execute this to the letter?
Right. So when you talk about feasibility, we may have to be careful how we're going to interpret that, because we can say that a policy is feasible when it has achieved 100%, capacity. But then let's look at it this way. There are some key infrastructure, existing infrastructures that we are underutilized. If government is able to, identify all these structures, and then quickly we turn out to say that we're going to increase, the employment in these structures, and as a result of that, we want them to operate 24 hours. That is an initial point. So you can say
So on paper, it is feasible.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It is feasible. It is feasible. We already have the structures. Some of them are being, when you talk about Temahabo, for instance, they are operating, but then, they by 6 o'clock, they've closed. And you ask yourself, if you have, a vessel coming to dock after 6 o'clock, it means it has to wait for the next day before, they start operating on it. But then if you have a policy of that sort, and government goes, all out to say, workers at the port should be able to work, 24 hours. I think we should get, vessels being cleared and all those. And then also, because we're going to have, 24-hour services, most of the activities that we're supposed to rush out to do them in the day, which normally causes congestions and, traffic, on our roads, possibly may be extended in the night. And one way or the other, in itself, that easing of economic activities during the day, and some of them being moved to the night, one way or the other is more or less, a benefit to the country. And so, from where I sit, it is feasible on paper, depending on how you are going to measure your feasibility. Because if you are saying that you should achieve 100%, target, I don't think we'll say it is feasible for now. But if government is able to operate, government is able to identify key hubs, right, within the economy, that within the next 1 to 2 years, we can tend to, operate fully 24 hours. I would say it is feasible.
What sectors? The former president has enumerated which sectors he would be going for. We've already talked about some of them, the DVLA, the Ports and Harbors Authority, among others. Which sectors, from where you sit, should be targeted at the very initial stages of this, if we want to target the most productive sectors or the most viable sectors, which would they be for you, Prof?
Well, I will first look at the health sector. And then we should also look at the security, because if someone wants to operate, his business out there, he wants to be protected. And so if, government should look at a sector that basically from the beginning of the policy, it should be the security sector, right? And then, the security sector is going to be kind of the base that the government will provide. It's going to be the kind of structure that the government must invest in, to achieve this 24-hour economy, because those who are working in the night may want to be protected. Another thing that, sector that we may have to look at is possibly the services sector, which we're talking about, the DVLA services, the passport services and all those. You see, the passport service in itself, I always say that the traffic during the day are so huge, and as a result of that, people put in their the passport, and, it takes them so long to get their passport. But if you want to run 24-hour economy, obviously you should improve on the turnaround of, passport applications and, the receiving of the passport. So there are some sectors that, and then agro-processing,
Right.
Agro-processing, government may look at it, carefully. But like I said, it shouldn't be a standalone policy. It should be a policy, that will go hand in hand with the macroeconomic environment, so that the private man can also come in. Because when you talk about agro-processing, most of them are being handled by the private sector. And so if interest rates, are down,
right.
and we've seen the trends, as we look at the macroeconomic number, if interest rates are down and the private man can borrow easily, they should be able to expand on their agro-processing businesses and, one way or the other, build up into this 24-hour economy. So
right.
we shouldn't treat it as a standalone policy when you ask of the feasibility, but rather we should look at it holistically, how it fits into, the current economic, structure that we have.
Thank you, Prof, for joining the conversation. Thank you for the insight you've shared. Professor Lord Mentor, of course, is with the University of Ghana Business School. We're grateful for your time.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. So right before we move into our next segment, to get ready for the Pastors Kids Conference 2024 Legacy Edition. Are you a child of a pastor, preacher, or a Christian minister? You are not alone. Join other pastors' kids from all denominations for the Pastors Kids Conference 2024 under the theme Legacy. The host, Apostle Francis Ajanasari. The date's the 24th day of August 2024. The venue is the Paris Dome, Jomlu Junction, Accra. The time, 9 a.m. prompt. Song ministration will be by Kofi Owusu Prepra, Enuonyam, Mrs. Ella Ajanasari, PKC Choir, and others. The rate is absolutely free. It will be an exciting time to network, enjoy music, learn, and get empowered. For registration, just call or WhatsApp these numbers. Of course, you can do that if you're of age, and of course, even your parents could do that on your behalf. 0550 068 632. 0550 068 632. It's absolutely free. And that's it. Pastors Kids Conference 2024 Legacy Edition. See you soon. But let's also talk briefly about energy. The Energy Commission and the Ministry of Energy present the 5th edition of the Energy Commission Senior High Schools Renewable Energy Challenge. This challenge aims at developing the research skills of senior high school students and promoting technological innovation in renewable energy. The competing schools for the northern sector are Olag Girls SHS, St. James Seminary SHS, Nkranza Technical Institute YSHS, Indewura Japa SHS, Dabokpa Technical Institute, Notre Dame Seminary SHS, and Wale Wale SHTS. From the southern sector or the southern zone, we have Ahantaman Girls SHS, Infantipim School, Wesley Grammar SHS, St. Rose's SHS, Bando SHS, Rara SHS, Obuasi SHTS, and Wale Wale SHTS. Join us for the Northern Zonal Challenge on Saturday, the 10th of August 2024 at 12 p.m. live. That, of course, having taken place at the Engineering Auditorium at KNUST Kumasi, and of course, the Southern Zone as well. This event is proudly supported by GIZ, SHS University, and VRA. The media partner, Joy News. Stay with us. We'll be back with a bit more right after the break.
NDC for Peo, Amun Peo, 2024 Abano, and Yadome win it.
Whether the NDC likes it or not, they will never win the 2024 election. They will never win. Go and check their record. They won't win. The MPP is bound to win the election.
Na MPP Amano Kono. MPP Amano Kono. Yes, you say you better win the election. MPP. Yes, you say you better win the election. It's the enemy. Why be asked why you better win the 2024 Amano?
We will use any means to win the election. We have pastors, imams, even traditionalists. If you don't understand, go and bend the sea. We'll win this election at all costs, so we can continue the good works to keep you.
You just stood at the corner, and when you was about to take the hotels, you said, hi, you ran away. And you just say you will not hand over power to President Mahama. I have a message for him. On the 9th of December, inshallah, if the good people vote for Mahama and your MPs, if he's a man, he should not hand over power and see. We will show him that when iron and iron meet, you will see fire.
We don't want to see any fire in this country, not from any end. But with the political temperature boiling at this point, and everything we're seeing from the different political parties, especially the two major political parties, the MPP and the NDC. You heard Brian Echampong, Dr. Brian Echampong. Now we've heard Malik Basintali. The Peace Council is worried about the charged political climate, which has been sustained by these intemperate comments by political actors in the lead up to the 2024 election. So how do we navigate this threat that also has the potential of derailing our peace? We are joined this morning, and we have joining the conversation Most Reverend Matthew Gyamfi. He is president of the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference, the GCBC. Your Grace, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation. It appears we've lost the Most Reverend Matthew Gyamfi. We'll try to get him back on the line so that we continue with the conversation from there. But there has been that spillover of sentiments. And in fact, in today's daily graphic on page 13, you would see the National Peace Council urging the political parties to stop threatening violence. The talk about we shall win by hook or crook, no matter what. There's no way the other side will win. It creates tension. But the responses as well, if they want fire, they will see fire. And some of the commentary that has come from different sides, problematic. Your Grace, Most Reverend Matthew Gyamfi, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I hope you are too.
Very well.
It's a pleasure having you join the conversation. How worrying is it for you? The National Peace Council has waded into the conversation, but how worrying is it for you as head of the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference? The tenor of the conversations emanating from the political parties and the tensions these are stoking. How concerned are you?
Well, we are very concerned because when such tensions build up and it is not controlled, then ultimately it explodes and we all suffer. So we are very, very much concerned.
What have your interactions been like with the political parties as of this time? I do know The National Peace Council has had some conversations. The Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference has also put out a few things, even statements, reactions, and all of that. But as of now, what have the conversations been like with especially the two major political parties? And what are you looking forward to engaging them on as far as this is concerned?
Well, we have, actually, the Catholic Church, we have started more and more educating people at the grassroots, not to be further for the intemperate language of the political activists. It is only when we feed and we respond and we give heed to what they say, then they can use us to cause violence and other things to destroy our happiness. So recently, we had a meeting at the National Peace Conference just 2 weeks ago on the election. We invited many people, civil society, etc. We invited the two political parties to be there, to be witnesses to what is going on and for us to hear from. Unfortunately, they didn't turn up. The two major political parties, MPP and NDC.
You mean you invited parties to come for this confab and the NDC and the MPP were not there?
Yes, we invited them. They did not come for the meeting. We had it at the International Peace Conference, the International Congress, Accra, and they didn't come. Subsequent to that, the Ghana and Muslim leaders, the Catholic and Muslim leaders, we have also had a meeting just last week, Thursday. And our point was to educate the membership of our churches, the Muslim leaders, the chief imam, and all the modern Muslim leaders were there, plus the ethnic leaders, the bishops were all there. And the other Christian denominations, for all of us to take it up to educate the people, our followers, about some of the things that political parties and political activists do and say, so that we may not respond and fall into their trap to destroy our peace. So we are working on the ground because when we talked to them, when we invited them, they didn't come. And therefore, we have to use another strategy to educate the people so that what they are saying and their intemperate language will not fall victim to these things.
After the initial attempt at getting these two parties on board, you are going to continue engaging them. What is the next step? Are you hoping to still bring them on board so that they can give their consent to this, binding them at least as far as election 2024 is concerned?
Certainly. As we are discussing with the populace, we also have to engage these political parties. By the occasion and the moment, since this one has failed, we haven't given up and we have not come up with a date and time and a method to get them together. We haven't come up with that, but we are working on something where we will be able to get them together.
I see. Any final words, Your Grace, before you take leave of us?
Yes. My final words is to political parties and political activists. What I'm saying, they should respect Ghanaians. And they should realize that we are smart and intelligent enough. And they should not think that by just saying anything, Ghanaians will fall for that. They are very few. And they cannot hold all of us Ghanaians to ransom. Why is it that you want to lead and you are asking us to vote for you? And you use language also to incite us so that in case you win or do not win, you cause us to harm ourselves, the people that you are asking us to vote for you. They should respect Ghana. Why is it that during every election time, there is tension? And you destroy the peace of the entire country. You make us so anxious. What is that? And this is something that we are appealing to all Ghanaians. We should not allow politicians. The country does not belong to them. They are asking us, begging us to vote for them so they can't lead us. Why should they lead us in this way that if we don't win or if we win, then this is what is going to happen? This or other means. Such language, they should be very, very careful. And that is why we are saying Ghanaians to rise up and not falling for this language. When people start using those language, we should punish them by the way we vote.
Right. Thank you so much, Most Reverend Matthew Jamfi, President, Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference. Thank you for joining the conversation. Thank you, Your Grace. And that is Most Reverend Matthew Jamfi, who just spoke there. On the back of this, if you look at the story in the Daily Graphic newspaper, for example, you'd see that apart from the National Chairman of the Peace Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edu Jamfi, you also have the likes of the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, Kathleen Addy, making mention of the fact that, and quoting her, no voter should shed any blood or risk their lives for politicians who promise violence because they are a danger to peace and order. They should go out with their children to carry out the violence they promise, not you, the voters. And that's what, especially for young people, I want you to keep in your heads. Don't allow any politician from whatever side, I don't care. No politician should make you their poodle and use you to sow the seed of violence. If you die and you are gone. That politician and his or her children will still be alive. And the NCC also pledging to continue to sensitize members of the public on the need to conduct electoral activities within the confines of the law. This has been our next belt of the conversation on the political parties, especially the NDC and the MPP, ahead of election 2024. But before we take our next breather, if you're stressed out about all your cleaning needs, you don't have to worry anymore. Danswell Services is your one-stop shop that meets all your commercial and residential cleaning needs, from pest control, janitorial and house cleaning services, event cleaning and waste management services, as well as carpet and sofa cleaning. Whether at home or at work, we understand and know how haptic cleaning can be coupled with your busy lifestyle. And we've got great news for you. Danswell Environmental and Facility Management Services has got you completely covered. We excel in whatever we do, leaving you beyond your wildest expectations. Locate us at the Excel House opposite the Regimanuel Estate, Nungwa Barrier, or call us on these numbers: 0302 905 538 or 0555 752 361. Danswell Services, beyond expectation. Well, after a harrowing brush with death, 33-year-old Grace Akufo-Addo is channeling her near-tragic experience into a powerful mission: to become a road safety advocate. Her goal is to inspire others to speak up if they sense something amiss in their vehicles. Despite enduring multiple surgeries and facing more ahead, Grace is slowly regaining her confidence. Now she's determined to use her voice to protect others and prevent similar tragedies. My colleague Adobia Asari visited her home and filed this report.
March 15, 2021, Grace Akufo-Addo's decision to help a friend took an unexpected turn, setting off a life-altering chain of events.
It was on a Monday, on the March 15th, 2021. I was even in bed in the morning, and I had a call from a friend that I should go and help her, that she's sick. She had a baby, the mother is sick and no one is around, so I should go and help her. So I was doing NAPCO. I just called the office for an excuse, and then I packed my things and set off. That was the day, the very day that thing happened. I was in a trotro. I think it was Spentex also. From Praso going to Cape Coast. I was in Jokwa and the person was in Cape Coast. So I had to move from Jokwa to Cape Coast. That was what happened.
She vividly recalls how their inexperienced driver's negligence led to a tragic accident.
I was in a car. He was dozing off and speeding at the same time. I was seated at the back. So I saw him dozing off and then speeding at the same time. I prompted him and he just took the mirror where I could see him dozing off. He took the mirror off from where I could see him. Then nobody talked. Nobody even prompted him. He was just speeding off and dozing off at the same time. So it was his fault. I learned the tire of the car. It got busted and then the tire busted. He couldn't control because of the speed he was going. And that is what happened. He was overtaking another car with speed. And then the tire busted, so he couldn't control. And then the car somersaulted, which resulted in killing 6 people.
But for the intervention of a passerby, Akosua would have been left to die in the nearby bushes.
I learned I was thrown inside the bush somewhere. Nobody even saw me. They took all the casualties, the dead and everybody to the hospital. And everybody that came around left. But it took someone that was going to urinate to see me under a tree. So the person just got some help. They took me to the roadside. And you know, the way the thing was, everybody that sees it is scared. They didn't want to offer any help. Any car that comes is scared. So it took a tractor driver, yes, that was loaded. Then he offered to keep me in the boot so that I would be taken to the hospital. They thought maybe I was dead. So that was what I was told. I didn't see anything.
The Good Samaritan, who happened to be from Jokwa, initially didn't recognize Akosua. To him, she was just another accident victim in need.
He knew me, but he didn't know it was me that was in that state.
You may be wondering what happened to the driver.
Nothing happened to him. I learned he has been jailed for 7-9 years, I think so, because 6 people died.
Grace shares her medical journey, detailing the number of surgeries she's had and how many she's left to undergo.
Well, from the hospital, I went to 37 military hospital for the first surgery. My eye, the left eye, you see, it comes down, the lid, how do I say it? Under the eye.
Can you take off your glasses?
Yes. This place, it can come down, then all this place will be showing. So I need to go for them to tack it up. And then also my nose. This place is part of my nose. Yes, you can feel it. They were trying to tack it, but I think it couldn't work. It was so saggy. So they will do it again, maybe December they will do it again. And then my legs as well. I've not had the complete knee back, but I think it helped. It's okay than before.
Funding her surgeries has been an uphill battle. With the help of generous souls, she was able to cover the cost of the first 3 procedures. But the uncertainty of how she will afford the next looms large. Right now, all she clings to is hope.
The surgeries I've done, the first one I did at 37 was from the friend's husband, the friend I was going to. Yes, the husband paid for it. The second one and the third one was paid by an NGO from, I don't know where they came from, but they're whites. They came down to help with other people with deficiencies. So they came and they foot all the bills. But when you go, you have to do 1 or 2 for yourself before they can do it for you.
Do you have any plan for the next surgeries? Do you know who's funding them?
Nobody. I said now I don't have any anything I'm looking up to, but I'm hoping things will change.
Akosua reflects on the life she once knew before the crash turned everything upside down. She speaks of the stark contrast between who she was and who she's become, imagining how different her world might have been if that fateful day had never happened. She confesses she hit rock bottom, both physically and emotionally.
I was full of everything. I was about, I had even completed, if this thing had not happened, by now I would have been done with my master's, working and going about my life, but now I can't do anything. I can't even go out. It's terrible. I lost my front teeth, all of the front teeth up and down. I lost them. It's not funny. It's a 0 point in life. You can't, I don't know. If you don't have, you don't have a mental, if you're not mentally stable, you can kill yourself.
To make matters worse, someone took the 21,000 cedis she had saved in the bank to fix her teeth, which she lost in the accident.
I went to take the money from the bank, 21,000. Someone in a taxi, the taxi I took, they collected all the money. I was having the bag at my back. They said the door is not opening, so I should help. Then when I turned my back, they took all the money from the bag.
She suffers sleepless nights, wondering if she'll ever return to her former self.
I'm disturbed. I can't even sleep at night. I've been thinking, because how do I get out of this situation? How do I get over it? How do I go back to my old self? It has not been easy. I can't sleep at night, honestly.
Despite everything, she demonstrates resilience by deciding to become a road safety advocate, sharing her story to inspire other road users.
I would like to, and I've been taken to the Road Safety Commission to meet the board members, and they have taken it up. They want to help come in and make sure I go on social media to also talk it out and make people know what is going on.
Her aspiration now is to tour the country and the world, spreading the road safety message.
I would want to go out the world, but if not the world, it should be in the country. Everybody should look at me, listen to my story, and learn from it. The drivers, the road users, everybody, they should look at me and learn and take actions in whatever they are doing when it comes to using the road. It's not funny. It's not comfortable at all. It's painful to be in this kind of situation.
Her younger sister, Georgina Amwakwa, with whom she has been living for 3 years, recounts the toll the accident has taken on Akosua's life.
She's a very active woman. She goes out, like, she does everything herself. But now she's not that strong. She can't go out anymore. Even if she wants to go out, she has to wear a mask.
Georgina says almost all of Akosie's friends have deserted her.
You know how all these people are. Yeah, when you are around, yeah, they will vibe with you. But when you are not around, they are no more.
Has she ever gotten tired of taking care of her sister? Has she ever felt she's a burden?
Never. Because she did it for me when I was little. Yeah, she took care of me while I was going through SHS and everything. Yeah, she's been supportive. She took care of me all those years. So I've never got tired of taking care of her, no.
Georgina is also appealing for funds to help with Akosie's surgeries and to find work for her.
I want someone to do some surgeries on her face, like plastic surgery, so that she will just come back to her normal state, like how she used to look. I want someone to also help her with work, a work that she can do, a work that she'll be able to do.
Despite the trial she faces, Akosie remains a steadfast presence in her sister's home, offering help whenever she can. Driven by her desire to reclaim a semblance of her former self, she's now reaching out for support. She seeks financial assistance for her upcoming surgeries and a job that will help her regain her independence and self-sufficiency.
I wish I can get my old self back, if not old self, but at least closer to who I was. I wish someone can help me to do my surgery, the complete facial surgery, and also give me something to do to fend for myself.
Listen to Akosie's advice to road users.
I just want the road users to just, they should add their voices to it. They should speak up if anything is not going on right on the road. Because even when I told the driver he was sleeping, nobody said anything. They were just looking on. Should they had done something or said something, maybe he would have slowed down or anything, but nobody did. So I'll urge them to come out and talk and add their voice. If you're in a car and the driver is misbehaving, you have the right to say it, because it's your life they are joking with.
Like many other fatal road crash victims, Grace Akosua-Samoa has to deal with a new, difficult life, different from what she's known. Drive safe, save lives. Adobia Asari's report for Joy News.